There are places on Earth that feel less like parts of our world and more like pieces of another realm entirely. Places so remote, so dangerous, and so inaccessible that they remind us how small human beings truly are. Most of the world today feels mapped, photographed, documented, and explored. But the truth is far more mysterious. There are corners of this planet that refuse to be tamed, places where nature holds absolute authority. Landscapes that swallow technology, erase footprints, and punish anyone who dares to cross their borders. Isolated regions where no roads lead, no rescue can reach quickly, and even survival itself feels like a negotiation with the Earth. In an age where we believe satellites can see everything and GPS can guide us anywhere, these places stand as quiet reminders that humans have not conquered as much as we think. Some places are difficult to reach, some are dangerous, and a rare few are almost impossible. This is a journey into those places, the forgotten coasts, the frozen edges of civilization, the mountains no one climbs, the islands almost no ship can anchor near, the jungles that swallow entire expeditions, the valleys protected by nature itself. And today we begin with one of the harshest stretches of land ever discovered, a coastline so deadly, so haunting, and so untouched that even the bravest explorers hesitate to approach it. Welcome to the Skeleton Coast of Namibia. The Skeleton Coast, the land God made in anger. There are coastlines known for beauty, coastlines known for tourism, and coastlines known for life. The Skeleton Coast is known for death. Stretching along the Atlantic edge of Namibia, this place is one of the most unforgiving environments humans have ever encountered. For centuries, sailors feared it more than storms, more than pirates, more than starvation, because once your ship ran aground here, your fate was already written. Imagine sailing through thick fog, the sea roaring around you, only to hear the sickening sound of wood smashing against unseen sandbanks. Your ship breaks apart. You make it to shore, alive. But when you stand on the beach, you realize something terrifying. There is nowhere to go. Behind you, the Atlantic crashes relentlessly, sending icy winds into your bones. In front of you, a desert stretches endlessly, with no water, no shade, no paths, and no chance of rescue. The Skeleton Coast did not get its name from human imagination. Its sands are littered with whale bones, seal skeletons, and rusted remains of shipwrecks, hundreds of them lying like gravestones of failed journeys. And even today, reaching this coastline is nearly impossible. Why is it so unreachable? The first reason is the sea itself. The Atlantic here is violent, cold, and unpredictable. Massive swells slam into the coastline at all hours. Fog rolls across the water like a living thing, reducing visibility to nothing. Even modern ships struggle to approach safely. The second reason is the land. The desert behind the coast is part of the Namib Desert, one of the oldest and driest deserts on Earth. There are dunes as tall as buildings, shifting constantly, reshaping the terrain, erasing tracks, and burying anything left behind. There are no towns here, no major roads, no rescue stations, no water sources, no real shelter. To cross this land without a helicopter, satellite communication, and a full expedition team is to gamble with your life. The third reason is isolation. This coastline is vast, over 1,000 kilometers, and almost entirely uninhabited. The nearest signs of civilization are far away, and even if someone knew you were here, reaching you quickly would be nearly impossible. It is the kind of place where human presence feels unnatural, like an intrusion into a world that does not want to be reached. A beauty that belongs to the Earth despite its reputation, the Skeleton Coast is breathtaking. Towering dunes meet roaring waves in a collision of desert and ocean that exists nowhere else in the world. Fog drifts over sand like a ghost. Sunlight breaks through clouds in dramatic beams. Wildlife strangely thrives. Seals, hyenas, desert-adapted elephants, even lions that learn to hunt along the shoreline. This is nature in its rawest form, untouched, unforgiving, and unfiltered. But beauty doesn't mean safety. Beauty doesn't mean accessible. This coastline remains one of the least reachable places on Earth for one simple reason. It does not care whether humans survive here or not. To visit the Skeleton Coast today, you need permits, guides, specialized vehicles, and sometimes aerial access. Even then, the land decides what happens, not the visitor. And that is the theme of every place we will explore next. Places where human ambition means nothing. Places where nature holds the final word. Places where reaching them is an accomplishment, surviving them is a miracle, and understanding them reminds us how wild our planet still is. The Skeleton Coast is just the beginning, the first doorway into a world of landscapes that remain hidden from most of humanity. If this place feels unreachable, if the Skeleton Coast is a graveyard of forgotten ships, then Bouvet Island is a world that barely seems real, a place so remote, so isolated, and so violently protected by nature that it feels like the Earth's final frontier. Most places on our planet are difficult to reach. Some require survival skills. Some demand courage. Some need careful planning. Bouvet Island requires all of that and still rejects visitors. Located in the South Atlantic Ocean, nearly halfway between Antarctica and the southern tip of Africa, Bouvet Island is the most remote island on Earth. It is so far from civilization that no human settlement has ever taken root here. No permanent research station survives here. No community has ever called it home. It is a place entirely alone. When explorers call it the loneliest place on the planet, they are not exaggerating. This island is literally surrounded by thousands of miles of empty ocean in every direction. There is no safe harbor, no natural landing area, no friendly coastline, no easy entry point. Bouvet Island is a fortress carved from ice, guarded by the roughest seas on Earth. A place discovered by accident. Most locations on Earth were found because explorers were searching for something. A new trade route, a new landmass, a new resource. Bouvet Island was discovered because a Norwegian sailor happened to catch a glimpse of it through thick, stormy fog in 1739. He saw a dark shape rising out of the ocean, then the fog swallowed it again. For decades, explorers believed it might have been a mistake, a mirage, a myth, an island that existed only in the memory of one man. When it was finally rediscovered, everything about it confirmed one truth: this island was never meant for humans. The ocean that guards it. To understand why Bouvet Island is nearly impossible to reach, you must first understand the water around it. The seas in this region are some of the harshest on the planet. Massive swells, sometimes as tall as buildings, rise and collapse with no warning. Winds roar at speeds strong enough to flip small boats. Fog moves in thick waves, wiping out visibility. And beneath the water, jagged rocks wait just below the surface, ready to rip apart any ship that dares venture too close. There are no gentle beaches. There are no sheltered coves. Bouvet has zero natural harbors, making it one of the few islands on Earth where landing is nearly impossible, even on a calm day. Most expeditions have been forced to abandon attempts simply because the island refused to let them near. A land made of ice and darkness. Let's imagine for a moment that you somehow manage to reach the island's edge. Your boat survives the waves, you avoid the hidden rocks, you get close enough to launch a landing craft. What greets you? A wall of cliffs, glaciers covering almost the entire island, perpetual winds that feel like knives, and temperatures well below freezing. 93% of Bouvet Island is covered in ice year-round. There are no forests, no freshwater rivers, no soil to plant in. No friendly wildlife. Only penguins and seals who survive here because they do not depend on land for warmth. The island rises from the sea like a frozen monument, a reminder of a world untouched by time. Even walking across Bouvet is a dangerous ordeal. The ice is unstable, cracked, and prone to collapsing. Crevasses hide beneath thin snow layers, ready to swallow anyone who steps in the wrong place. Nothing here is gentle. Nothing is welcoming. Everything is extreme. The mystery of the abandoned boat, one of the strangest discoveries ever made on Bouvet Island, happened in 1964, when a South African expedition landed near a small rocky shelf, one of the only places flat enough to stand. There, surrounded by untouched ice and absolute emptiness, they found something impossible: a lifeboat abandoned with oars still inside. No people, no footprints, no bodies, no signs of struggle, no explanation. Even stranger, no ship had reported distress in the region. No vessels had gone missing. No emergency calls were ever recorded. To this day, the origin of that small lifeboat remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of modern exploration. Some believe a ship was lost at sea, its fate never recorded. Some think the crew attempted to land, only to vanish without a trace. Others believe the waves carried the boat onto the island with no one inside. But the truth is simple: Bouvet Island erases evidence. Its storms are too strong, its coastline too violent, its cold too unforgiving. If something or someone disappears here, the island keeps the secret. A place no one can claim. Bouvet Island is officially a Norwegian territory, but the reality is that it belongs to nature and nature alone. Even scientific groups struggle to establish temporary bases. Storms destroy equipment. Ice buries supplies. Visibility drops to zero. Entire teams must evacuate or risk being stranded. Satellite monitoring is often the only safe way to study the island. Yet even satellites sometimes fail to capture it clearly because cloud cover and fog cloak it almost constantly. The island hides itself. Not intentionally, of course, but with a force that feels almost intentional. Bouvet Island is not a place you visit. It is a place you attempt to visit. A place you might reach only if the ocean grants permission, and the ocean rarely grants anything. The loneliest corner of human reach. If you were to stand on Bouvet Island, you would be farther from civilization than almost any human on Earth. No cities nearby, no shipping lanes, no flight paths, no radio towers, no roads, nothing, just ice, wind, the crash of the ocean, and the kind of silence that only exists in places untouched by human life. Bouvet is not only isolated, it is isolation itself, and this is why it remains one of the most impossible places on Earth to reach. Not because humans lack technology, not because we lack bravery, but because some places simply refuse to be reached. Some landscapes are meant to remain wild. Bouvet Island is one of them, a silent reminder that our planet still holds secrets, still holds boundaries, still holds corners untouched by the human world. And we're only at the beginning of this journey. If Bouvet Island is the loneliest speck in the ocean, then the Kerguelen Islands are the forgotten kingdom of wind and stone, a place so remote, so storm-beaten, and so detached from the rest of the planet that explorers once called it the Isles of Desolation. Here, nothing is gentle, nothing is familiar, and nothing is close. The Kerguelen Islands sit deep in the southern Indian Ocean, thousands of kilometers from Africa, thousands more from Australia, and even farther from Antarctica. There is no nearby continent, no nearby settlement, no nearby anything. This is a land suspended in the middle of nowhere, a world wrapped in fog, surrounded by violent seas, and carved by volcanic forces older than human memory. Most people will never hear of this place. Even fewer will ever see it, and almost no one will ever stand on its shores. Because reaching the Kerguelen Islands is one of the greatest logistical challenges on Earth. The sea that guards them. The first thing you must understand about Kerguelen is that the ocean does not want you anywhere near it. The islands lie in the middle of the roaring 40s and furious 50s, latitudes famous for ferocious winds and monstrous waves. This stretch of ocean is one of the harshest on the planet, a place where storms travel endlessly around the globe with nothing to slow them down. There are no continents to block the wind, no islands to soften the waves, no harbors to provide shelter. The Southern Ocean is a beast, and it protects the Kerguelen Islands with absolute brutality. Ships attempting to approach often face waves as tall as houses, sudden temperature drops, thick, blinding fog winds that can tear sails apart, unpredictable currents, ice-cold water that kills within minutes. These are not waters for casual travel. They are waters for survival. Even modern vessels struggle. This alone makes reaching the islands nearly impossible for anyone except scientific vessels, and even they can only arrive a few times a year. Discovered and immediately FEARED, when the French navigator Yves-Joseph de Kerguelen first sighted the islands in 1772, he believed he had found a great southern continent. Instead, he discovered a barren, hostile land that offered nothing except violent storms, volcanic landscapes, and a coastline clawed apart by the ocean. He called it La Desolation, a perfect name, a name that still defines the islands today. For centuries, sailors avoided Kerguelen entirely. There was no reason to stop here, no fresh food, no timber, no shelter, no trade routes nearby, only danger. Many ships passed through the region on long voyages but refused to anchor. To land here was to risk never leaving. A land of wind, rock, and eternal winter. If you somehow survive the journey and find a way onto Kerguelen's rocky shores, the real challenge begins. The islands are cold year-round, not freezing like Antarctica, but cold enough that winter never truly leaves. Summer temperatures often hover just above zero. Snow, rain, and sleet appear in unpredictable cycles, and the wind never stops. It howls across the islands with such intensity that trees cannot grow. Not a single tree exists on the Kerguelen Islands, not one. The landscape is a mix of jagged volcanic cliffs, moss-covered plains, glacial valleys, fog-draped lakes, rugged mountains, endless black rock waterfalls blown sideways by wind. It looks like a world abandoned by time, untouched, unforgiving, and silent, except for the wind and the ocean. This absence of comfort is why the islands remain uninhabited, except for a handful of rotational scientists who stay temporarily. No permanent human settlement has ever survived here. A place where nature rules completely despite the harshness, life has found a way. But not human life, animal life. The islands are home to millions of seabirds, massive colonies of penguins, unique species of seals, rare insects adapted to cold climates, wild rabbits and reindeer, introduced centuries ago. This wildlife lives according to the rhythm of nature, unaffected by humans because humans rarely step foot here. There are no roads, no shops, no villages, no airports, no tourism infrastructure, just a small French research base visited only a few times each year by one supply ship, the Marion Dufresne II. If you miss that ship, you are stranded until it returns months later. There is no rescue helicopter, no emergency route, no backup plan. The Kerguelen Islands are not a destination, they are a commitment. The silence of true isolation. If you were to stand on a ridge overlooking the island, the world would feel impossibly vast. The wind would roar in your ears. Fog would slide across the ocean like a ghost. The sky would stretch endlessly with no jet trails, no lights, no signs of civilization. You would see nothing, absolutely nothing, to remind you of humanity. No buildings, no roads, no sound of engines, no towers, no boats, just you, the land, the sky, and the ocean. It is isolation in its purest form. This is the type of place that forces a person to understand how fragile human life is and how powerful nature remains. Why it remains impossible to reach the Kerguelen Islands are inaccessible, not because they are far away. Many places are far away. They are inaccessible because the ocean refuses to cooperate, weather shifts faster than you can predict, landing zones are limited, and dangerous supplies are scarce. Rescue is nearly impossible. The environment can kill you quickly. No commercial travel exists. Reaching them requires weeks of preparation, permits, and survival gear. This is a place humans do not control. It is a place we visit rarely and leave quickly, because staying too long reminds us of our limitations. The Kerguelen Islands are not hostile by choice. Nature does not choose. Nature simply exists. These islands are wild because they have never been anything else, and that is why they remain one of the most impossible locations on our planet. A reminder that even in a world mapped from space, there are still places that refuse to be reached, tamed, or understood. There are places on Earth where survival is a daily negotiation. Places where the human body is not designed to live, where nature does not welcome visitors, and where life feels like standing on the edge of the world. But then there is Alert, a place where even seasoned explorers pause, breathe deeply, and question whether they've reached the limit of human endurance. Located at the northern tip of Canada's Nunavut territory, Alert is the closest inhabited place to the North Pole. Only 817 kilometers of ice and ocean separate it from the top of the planet. No town lies farther north. No community endures harsher conditions. This is not a city, not a village, not a destination. Alert is a station, a strategic outpost, and a symbol of just how far humans can push themselves into the cold. Reaching it is nearly impossible. Surviving it is even harder. A place where the world ends. Imagine flying north past forests, past tundra, past frozen lakes, past landscapes where trees stopped growing long ago. Imagine leaving behind even the Arctic Circle and continuing upward into a region where the Earth curves toward the pole and the sun behaves like a stranger. Eventually, you reach a land of endless ice, white horizons, sub-zero winds, permafrost plains, silence so heavy it feels alive. This is where Alert sits, a scattering of buildings surrounded by nothing but frozen emptiness in every direction. Standing here feels like stepping onto another planet. You don't ask, where is everyone? Because the answer is simple, there is no one. No towns, no travelers, no highways, no ports, no passing ships, no surrounding villages. Just ice, wind, and the unbroken Arctic wilderness. A climate that PUSHES human limits. Alert is not just cold, it is unbelievably cold. Winter temperatures can plunge to 50 degrees C, sometimes colder. Winds slice through layers of clothing like knives. Frostbite can set in within minutes of exposure. Even breathing the wrong way can sting your lungs. And darkness. Alert experiences months without sunlight. Imagine waking up day after day, unable to tell morning from night. Imagine performing your tasks under a faint glow of moonlight, stars, and the faint reflection of snow. Then comes summer, a season of constant daylight, where the sun refuses to set and time feels distorted and unreal. Your body never fully adjusts. Your mind never fully rests. This is a place where even light and darkness become extreme. Why Alert exists at all? You might wonder why anyone would choose to live in such a place. The truth is they don't. Alert is not a permanent settlement by choice. It is a rotating station for military personnel, scientists, and weather researchers. Most people stay for months, not years. Its location gives it a strategic advantage. It monitors Arctic weather systems, it tracks global climate patterns, it functions as a listening post, it supports international scientific missions. Alert exists because the Arctic is changing, and the world needs eyes on the top of the planet. But even with modern buildings, advanced equipment, and safety protocols, nature still dominates completely. If something goes wrong, help is far away. The challenge of reaching Alert is one of the hardest travel operations on Earth. There are no roads, no sea routes, no easy paths through the ice. You can only arrive by specially equipped aircraft, and even that is a gamble. The runway sits on shifting permafrost, and sudden storms can trap aircraft for days. The region's weather changes in minutes, not hours. Even military pilots describe landing here as one of the most difficult tasks of their careers. Flights must carry everything: fuel, food equipment, medical supplies, emergency kits, communications gear, because nothing grows here. Nothing can be delivered by ground. Nothing can be shipped by sea. Alert survives only through constant resupply when the weather allows it. Sometimes, storms block planes for weeks. When that happens, Alert becomes one of the most isolated places on Earth. Living in a world of silence, life in Alert does not resemble life anywhere else. The silence is overwhelming. There is no hum of traffic, no rustle of trees, no flowing rivers, no wildlife sounds except the occasional distant cry of a wandering Arctic fox. People here live indoors most of the time. Exposure is dangerous. The cold is merciless. The darkness affects the mind. Isolation becomes a constant companion. You wake up in darkness. You work in darkness. You eat in darkness. You rest in darkness. Then summer arrives and the opposite happens. Light pours into your room at 3 a.m. Your body clock dissolves. You feel awake when you should sleep, tired when you should be active. Nothing follows normal rules. Everything demands adaptation. The landscape that swallows evidence. One of the strangest things about the far north is how quickly the environment covers anything left behind. Tracks disappear. Structures collapse under frost. Metal rusts. Snow buries remains. If something or someone vanishes here, the land absorbs them quietly. The Arctic does not preserve memory, it erases it. This is part of why Alert feels almost supernatural. You are standing on a piece of Earth that rejects permanence. Why Alert is nearly impossible to reach. It's not only distance. It's not only cold. It's not only darkness. It's everything combined. Severe, unpredictable weather, impossible overland travel, no sea access, no nearby communities, zero natural resources, limited rescue options. Extreme psychological pressure, constant environmental danger. Alert is a place humans do not belong, yet humans stay anyway, for the sake of knowledge, research, and global science. And maybe that's why it feels so powerful. It represents the thin line between human persistence and nature's absolute authority. A reminder that there are still parts of our world where survival is not assumed, where every breath is earned, and where reaching the destination is a triumph in itself. Alert is not just remote, it is the edge of human existence, and it is only one of the many places on this planet that remain nearly unreachable. There are places where the Arctic feels distant, places where the cold is something you can escape with a warm fire or thick clothing, places where winter is harsh but survivable. Franz Josef Land is not one of those places. Here, winter does not arrive because it never leaves. Cold is not a season, it is the ruler. And isolation is not an inconvenience, it is the defining feature of this frozen kingdom. Located deep within the Russian Arctic, Franz Josef Land is a cluster of 191 islands, scattered like broken teeth across the Barents Sea. It is one of the northernmost landmasses on Earth, only a few hundred miles from the North Pole. But unlike other polar regions, this archipelago feels almost mythological, a world locked in ice, protected by shifting seas, and almost impossible to reach. Explorers once described it as the last map in the Atlas, a place where the Earth forgets human presence entirely, and in many ways they were right. A land accidentally discovered. Franz Josef Land wasn't found intentionally. In 1873, an Austro-Hungarian expedition searching for the Northeast Passage became trapped in drifting sea ice. The ship was immobilized for months, pushed helplessly across the Arctic. Only when the ice slowly carried them north did they finally see islands. Unmapped, unknown, unbelievable. Their discovery was pure accident, a reminder that much of our world was stumbled upon rather than conquered. And even after its discovery, no one rushed to return. Because reaching Franz Josef Land was, and still is, one of the most difficult journeys on Earth. the impossible sea barrier. To understand why this region is so unreachable, you must picture the waters around it not water but frozen armor. The sea here is covered by thick pack ice. Drifting ice floes, blocks the size of houses, pressure ridges taller than a person, ice fields stretching farther than the eye can see. It is not a sea you sail, it is a sea you struggle through. Even nuclear-powered icebreakers, the strongest ships ever built, move cautiously in this region. They can take days to travel a few kilometers. The ice here shifts, cracks, and closes unpredictably, trapping vessels without warning. These waters have swallowed expeditions whole. They do not forgive mistakes. This is why France's Joseph Land is reached only by military icebreakers, specialized research vessels, occasional helicopters. Weather permitting, there are no commercial routes, no passenger ships, no supply lines. Only people with purpose and permission ever attempt to reach it. A kingdom of ice and silence. If you manage to reach the islands, you find a landscape that looks almost extraterrestrial. Nearly every island is covered in glaciers, not just patches of ice, entire continents of it. Massive ice domes rise like frozen mountains. Cliffs of blue ice plunge into black Arctic waters. Cracks echo like thunder in the distance. The ground beneath the ice is rarely visible. In many places, the ice is hundreds of meters thick, older than human civilization. The silence is overwhelming, broken only by the wind or the rumble of collapsing ice. There are no trees, no soil, no warmth, just rock, snow, ice, and the weight of a world that has never been tamed. Summer here is not truly summer. Temperatures remain below freezing. Fog rolls across the ocean like smoke. The sun circles the sky without setting, casting an unending glow over a frozen desert. Winter. Winter is another story entirely. The sun disappears for months. Darkness consumes the landscape. Temperatures plunge below 40 degrees C. Storms tear across the islands with such force they erase footprints seconds after they're made. Humans do not belong here, not naturally, not comfortably. This is a land built for polar bears, not people. The most powerful predator roaming freely, France's Joseph Land has one of the highest densities of polar bears anywhere in the Arctic. They roam the islands freely, hunting seals on the ice, traveling between islands with effortless grace, and approaching humans with dangerous curiosity. Here, you are the intruder. You are the fragile species. You are the one who must stay alert every moment. Explorers learned long ago that the cold is not the only threat. The wildlife here views the islands as theirs, not yours. And they are right. An unforgiving environment for humans. Unlike alert in Canada, there are no permanent settlements on France's Joseph Land. Only temporary research stations exist, housing small teams of scientists for limited periods of time. Supplies must be rationed. Generators must be maintained constantly. Communications rely on satellites. Medical emergencies require immediate evacuation, but evacuation is often impossible due to weather. Everything about living here is fragile. If a generator fails, the cold can become deadly within hours. If a polar bear approaches, you may not see it until it is too late. If a storm arrives, you may be trapped indoors for days or weeks. This is not a place where humans adapt. It is a place where humans endure. The shadow of history. Several expeditions attempted to explore France's Joseph Land in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Many ended in disaster. Ships crushed by ice. Explorers stranded. Supplies dwindling, starvation setting in. Men wandering across glaciers with no bearings, no sunlight, and no hope. Some were rescued, others were not. Their journals reveal a terrifying truth. France's Joseph Land does not simply challenge you, it dismantles you. The landscape is disorienting. The cold drains energy. The darkness eats morale. Navigation becomes guesswork. Distances deceive the eye. This is a place where direction means nothing and survival means everything. Why it remains one of the most impossible places to reach. France's Joseph Land is inaccessible because of a perfect combination of obstacles. The frozen, shifting Arctic sea extreme, unpredictable weather, dangerous wildlife, the absence of infrastructure, lack of safe landing zones, no natural resources, months of darkness, constant environmental hazards, the sheer remoteness of the archipelago, even with modern technology. Arrival is rare, and departure must be timed with absolute precision. Franz Josef Land is not a destination. It is a test of patience, a test of endurance, a test of respect for nature's dominance. Here, the Earth reminds us of something we often forget. There are places humans can reach and places humans should not reach easily. Franz Josef Land belongs to the latter, a frozen kingdom untouched, unclaimed, and unreachable by all but the most determined. It is one of the last true wildernesses, a reminder that our world is still larger, colder, and more mysterious than we imagine. Most impossible places are guarded by ice, mountains, or violent seas. But the Javari Valley, deep in the Amazon rainforest of Brazil, is protected by something far more complex. A living, breathing wall of jungle so dense, so wild, and so hostile that it swallows entire expeditions without a trace. This is one of the last regions on Earth where uncontacted tribes still live in complete isolation, untouched by modern civilization. Not because they are hidden, but because the land itself makes reaching them nearly impossible. The Javari Valley is not merely remote. It is a world unto itself, a world where the canopy blocks sunlight, a world where the air is thick enough to drink, a world where survival is not guaranteed even for experts, a world where nature still speaks louder than man. Most people will never hear its name, and perhaps that is for the best, because this place was never meant for outsiders. A labyrinth of green and silence. Imagine stepping into a forest where every direction looks the same, where trees stretch upward like pillars holding a green ceiling, where vines hang like ropes, tangling into walls taller than you, where the ground hides pits, thorns, sinkholes, and insects by the millions. This is the Javari Valley, a place where sunlight barely reaches the ground, the air feels heavy and humid every second of the day, paths disappear within hours, plants grow faster than you can cut them, rivers twist like serpents through the jungle, animals move silently. Unseen, the forest never stops watching you here. You do not walk. You push. You hack. You crawl. You squeeze through tunnels of foliage that fight back with every step. The forest is alive, and it does not yield easily. A wall of hostility and beauty. The Javari Valley is stunning to look at, but terrifying to enter. The challenges begin immediately. 1. The heat and humidity. Temperatures soar toward 40 degrees C, 104 degrees F. Humidity remains near 100%. Your clothes never dry. Your skin never cools. Your lungs feel heavy. Sweat evaporates so slowly that heat exhaustion becomes a constant threat. 2. The insects. Mosquitoes swarm in clouds, so thick they form moving shadows. Many carry malaria, yellow fever, and other deadly diseases. Stinging ants, biting flies, and venomous spiders hide everywhere, on leaves, under bark, inside your boots. 3. The terrain. Mud pits can swallow your leg to the knee. Roots twist like traps across the ground. Rivers flood without warning. Animal trails lead nowhere. Maps become meaningless within minutes. 4. The wildlife. Jaguars stalk silently. Anacondas lurk beneath still water. Poison dart frogs hide beneath leaves. And caimans, relatives of alligators, glide through murky rivers at night. This is a place where animals do not fear humans. Humans fear the animals. The tribes who live beyond the world. What makes the Javari Valley even more unreachable is that some of its inhabitants do not want to be reached. The valley contains one of the largest concentrations of uncontacted tribes on the planet. Dozens of groups who have never interacted with modern civilization and have no desire to. They live as their ancestors lived thousands of years ago, hunting with bows and spears, building shelters from palm leaves, navigating the forest by memory, following the cycles of the river and seasons, speaking languages unknown to the outside world, and they fiercely protect their land. Attempts to enter their territory can be met with warning shots, or worse. These tribes have survived because their home is nearly impenetrable. The jungle protects them. The remoteness protects them. The lack of roads, maps, and clear routes protects them. The Javari Valley is one of the few places where humans live completely outside the reach of modern society, and they plan to keep it that way. No easy paths, no safe routes. Reaching the Javari Valley requires days, sometimes weeks of river travel through waterways that twist endlessly. Boats move slowly, blocked by branches, logs, and shallow passages. Even finding the valley's borders is difficult. Crossing them is nearly impossible. There are no roads, no ports, no landing strips in the interior. Only boats and helicopters can approach it, and helicopters cannot land in dense rainforest. This creates a paradox. You can see the valley from above, but you cannot touch it. The only way in is through the rivers, and the rivers are guarded by both nature and the people who live there. For most of the year, heavy rains flood the region, turning travel into a dangerous gamble. Canoes tip easily. Currents shift unpredictably. Visibility drops to zero. During dry seasons, water routes shrink, stranding travelers in mosquito-infested marshes. There is no ideal time to enter the Javari Valley. It is hostile year-round. The land that swallows expeditions throughout history, explorers have attempted to map or access this region. Almost all failed. Some turned back due to disease. Some ran out of supplies. Some were overwhelmed by the terrain. Some were stopped by tribes defending their territory. Some simply disappeared, swallowed by the forest without a trace. Even today, rescue missions in the Javari Valley face enormous difficulties. GPS signals are weak under the canopy. Helicopters cannot penetrate the forest. Ground teams move extremely slowly. Rain can erase footprints within hours. Animals scatter evidence. Rivers shift daily, altering routes if someone goes missing here. The forest closes around them like a curtain. The Javari Valley does not reveal secrets easily. Protected by law and by nature, Brazil has officially designated the Javari Valley as protected territory. No outsiders may enter without government permission, and even then, entry is restricted, not for the safety of the traveler, but for the safety of the tribes who live there. Contact with outsiders has historically led to disease outbreaks that devastate uncontacted groups. Their isolation is fragile and essential. Thus, the valley remains closed legally and naturally. A sanctuary for people living ancient lives, a fortress protected by its own wilderness. Why the Javari Valley is one of the most impossible places to reach. Distance alone does not define its inaccessibility. Isolation alone does not define it. Danger alone does not define it. What makes this valley nearly unreachable is the combination of all factors: impenetrable rainforest, extreme humidity, and heat, deadly wildlife, constant disease, threats, no roads or trails, shifting river routes, tribal protection, legal restrictions, weak communication systems, the risk of never being found if something goes wrong. The Javari Valley is not simply a remote place. It is a world apart, untouched and untamed, a place humanity was never meant to enter casually. In an age where satellites map every street and drones film every landscape, this valley stands as a reminder. There are still places on Earth that do not want to be reached. Some places are impossible to reach because of climate, some because of terrain, some because people choose to stay away. The Siberian traps, however, are unreachable for a different reason. They are connected to one of the most catastrophic events in Earth's history. A reminder that long before humans struggled to survive, the planet itself nearly died. Located deep in the heart of Siberia, stretching across more than 7 million square kilometers, the Siberian traps are one of the largest volcanic formations ever discovered, a landscape forged from fire, then abandoned to ice. This is not a place people explore. This is a place people avoid, a land so vast, so empty, and so hostile that even modern expeditions struggle to reach it. A land where temperatures drop low enough to kill within minutes. A land where forests stretch endlessly, broken only by walls of volcanic rock older than the dinosaurs. And beneath it all lies a terrifying truth. This region once triggered the greatest mass extinction event the world has ever known. A silence lies over the Siberian traps, a silence built from the weight of ancient destruction. The Great Dying, an earthly apocalypse about 252 million years ago, the Siberian traps erupted on a scale unimaginable to modern humans. Not for days, not for weeks, but for hundreds of thousands of years. Volcanoes split open the Earth's crust across the region, releasing lava, ash, and toxic gases in quantities so massive they reshaped the planet. 90% of all species died, oceans acidified, atmospheres thickened, temperatures soared, forests burned endlessly. The air became poison. It was the closest the Earth has ever come to becoming uninhabitable, and the scars of that ancient apocalypse remain frozen across Siberia, a geological tombstone marking the site of the world's greatest catastrophe. This alone gives the Siberian traps a chilling mystique, but reaching them is another story entirely. An ocean of land with no roads. Siberia itself is already one of the least accessible regions on Earth. It is bigger than the entire United States, yet almost completely empty. Now imagine traveling deep into the center of that wilderness. There are no major cities, no airports nearby, no highways, no reliable trails, no villages for hundreds of kilometers, no consistent weather, no easy way in. Or out. The Siberian traps stretch across a remote expanse larger than many countries. To reach them is to cross endless taiga, a forest so vast and repetitive that it feels like the world is looping around you. Trees stretch on for days, then weeks, then farther still. Rivers slice through the land like icy blades, creating natural barriers impossible to cross without boats or aircraft. Most explorers who approach the region must rely on helicopters, frozen river paths, seasonal ice roads, long-range expeditions with massive supplies. Any mistake here is potentially fatal. The climate that fights back Siberia is not simply cold, it is brutally, dangerously, unforgivingly cold. Winter temperatures drop to 50 degrees C, sometimes even colder. Nights last more than 18 hours. Wind chill burns exposed skin instantly. Vehicles freeze, fuel thickens, metal becomes brittle, even breathing hurts. In summer, conditions shift. Snow melts into rivers of mud. Insects swarm by the millions. Heat rises suddenly. Weather changes violently. There is no comfortable season here. Nature dictates everything, and nature does not compromise. This environment alone makes large parts of the Siberian traps nearly unreachable. But the land itself adds another layer of difficulty. A terrain shaped by extinction, the landscape of the Siberian traps is unlike anything else on Earth. Massive basalt plateaus rise in dark, jagged steps, remnants of lava flows that once poured across the region in waves. Imagine black cliffs stretching for kilometers, stepped rock formations like enormous staircases, cracked earth, revealing volcanic scars, valleys carved by ancient rivers of molten rock, flat plains of basalt that reflect heat like mirrors, deep crevices hidden beneath snow. The terrain changes constantly, creating natural traps and obstacles that can injure or kill anyone who missteps. The land is not meant to be walked. It is meant to be respected from a distance. No support, no rescue, no mistakes. Unlike other remote places, the Siberian traps offer no infrastructure. If something goes wrong, there are no hospitals, there are no villages, there are no rescue teams, there is no quick way to call for help. You are alone. Even satellites have trouble reading the region due to weather interference and the vastness of its uninhabited terrain. Explorers must bring shelter, food, water, navigation equipment, fuel, medical supplies, communication tools, firearms for wildlife, backup generators. If any of these fail, the expedition is in danger. This is why so few people ever attempt to journey through the Siberian traps. It is not simply a difficult expedition. It is a survival challenge against the planet itself. The shadow of isolation, one of the strangest sensations reported by those who reach the Siberian traps, is the feeling of absolute emptiness. Not silence, emptiness. No human voices, no distant cars, no airplanes overhead, no phone signals, no lights, no sense of civilization, just the soft crack of ice, the howl of winter wind, the rustling of trees in a world that feels abandoned. Standing here, you understand how insignificant humans truly are. The Earth existed before us. It endured catastrophes, it rebuilt itself, and it remembers its scars. This land is ancient, powerful, and indifferent. You feel it immediately. Why the Siberian traps remain unreachable? What makes this region one of the most impossible places to reach? Not just one factor, but all of them together. Extreme cold, no roads or infrastructure, remote. Immense wilderness, dangerous volcanic terrain, unpredictable weather, lack of rescue options, isolation measured in hundreds of kilometers. The mental strain of emptiness, the sheer scale of the land. A geological history that warns visitors a way to reach the Siberian traps is to challenge nature. To survive them is to understand humility. This region is a reminder of Earth's raw power, of events that shaped the planet long before humans walked upon it. And perhaps that is why so few people ever stand here. Not because they cannot, but because the land whispers an ancient truth. Some places were forged by destruction and meant to remain undisturbed. Some places resist exploration because they are too cold. Some because they are too remote. Some because the land itself becomes a barrier. But the Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge is different. It is not just remote, not just dangerous, not just unpredictable. It is a place that seems designed to remain hidden, a colossal tear in the earth that plunges deeper than any other canyon, wrapped inside the world's highest mountains, guarded by weather, cliffs, landslides, and ancient secrecy. Many explorers call it the Everest of rivers. Others describe it as the last great geographical mystery, and some believe it is the closest thing Earth has to a natural fortress. The Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge is not merely hard to reach, it defies being reached. The Deepest Gorge on Earth. Most people have heard of the Grand Canyon. Few know that the Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge is twice as deep. As the Yarlung Tsangpo River cuts through the Himalayas, it drops from the Tibetan Plateau into a chasm so steep, so violent, and so immense that it makes human presence feel meaningless. Walls of rock rise more than 5,000 meters around it, taller than many mountain ranges. The river thunders through the canyon with unimaginable force, twisting around sharp bends, plunging into narrow channels, and smashing into boulders with a roar that echoes through the valley like a beast. No place on Earth combines this level of height, depth, speed, and force. Standing at the edge feels like staring into the Earth's lungs, a place where the planet breathes in storms and exhales wind. A geographical fortress. Most gorges can be accessed from multiple directions. The Tsangpo Gorge cannot. It is locked inside. The Himalayas, steep cliffs, violent rivers, constant landslides, difficult terrain, thick forests, narrow mountain passes. Even today, with satellites, drones, and modern mapping, large parts of the gorge remain barely recorded. There are no roads that reach the deeper sections, no safe hiking routes, no reliable paths. To reach the interior, you must walk for days through unstable ground, slippery slopes, and cliffs that drop thousands of meters. This is a place where nature controls every step you take. The weather that changes in minutes. One of the greatest challenges of the Yarlung Tsangpo Gorge is its weather. Because it sits between the cold Tibetan Plateau and the warm, humid Indian monsoon region, Storms form rapidly, sometimes in seconds. Explorers report, one moment, clear blue sky the next, thick fog rolling like smoke then, violent rain hitting sideways followed by, landslides triggered without warning. Temperature shifts are extreme. Visibility can drop to zero. Paths can disappear instantly under falling rock or mud. Even experienced climbers have found themselves trapped by sudden storms, unable to climb up or down. If the gorge wants to close itself off, it does. Humans have no say in the matter. The absolute power of the river, the Yarlung-Tsangpo River, is not like other rivers. It is faster, stronger, more violent, more unpredictable. In some places, the river drops more than 30 meters in a single kilometer, creating rapids so powerful they can shred rafts and kayaks instantly. These rapids are considered the most dangerous in the world. Class VI+, unrunnable, untouchable. A handful of world-class kayakers attempted to navigate sections of it. Some succeeded. Some did not survive. Even on calm days, the river is wild. On stormy days, it is unstoppable. Water slams into the gorge with such force that mist rises hundreds of meters into the air, making the canyon look like it's steaming. This river does not allow mistakes. It does not forgive errors. It does not slow down for anyone. A place of legends and spiritual mystery, the gorge is not just a physical barrier, it is a cultural one. For centuries, the region has been shrouded in Tibetan myths. Some stories speak of hidden kingdoms inside the gorge. Others describe caves where time moves differently. Monks whisper of Baal, sacred hidden valleys accessible only to the pure of heart. Whether these legends are literal or symbolic, they share a common theme. This place is not meant for ordinary eyes. The land itself chooses who may enter and who should stay away. Why exploration is nearly impossible. Many attempts have been made to fully explore the gorge. Most failed due to 1. Terrain. The land is too steep, too unstable, too unpredictable. 2. Weather. Storms form fast and violently. 3. River force rafts cannot navigate most sections safely. 4. Landslides. The gorge collapses sections of itself regularly. 5. Remoteness. Rescue is nearly impossible. 6. Lack of infrastructure. No reliable roads or bridges. 7. Environmental protection. Parts of the gorge are protected, restricting access. Every obstacle reinforces the same message. This place does not want to be reached. The human cost of exploration. The Tsangpo Gorge has humbled some of the world's most skilled adventurers. Teams have vanished. Climbers have been buried. Rafts have shattered. Experts have retreated, admitting defeat. The deepest parts of the gorge remain unseen by any human, not because no one tried, but because the land itself prevents their passage. Even hikers outside the gorge face enormous risks. Wildlife, including bears and elusive snow leopards, roam the region. Paths crumble. Rivers shift courses. Rain turns trails into mudslides. This is a place where nature reclaims everything. Why the Yarlung-Tsangpo Gorge remains one of the most impossible places to reach. Its inaccessibility is a perfect blend of extreme height, extreme depth, extreme weather, extreme river power, cultural protection, geographical isolation, constant natural danger, fragile, unstable terrain, a complete lack of safe infrastructure. The gorge is not unreachable because it is far away, but because it is locked behind layers of natural defenses. It feels less like a canyon and more like a hidden world the earth refuses to reveal fully. For centuries, explorers have dreamed of conquering it, but the Yarlung-Tsangpo Gorge does not want to be conquered. It wants to remain mysterious, ancient, unreachable, untouched. A reminder that even today, when technology maps the ocean floor and images capture the surface of Mars, there are still places on Earth that remain secrets. The Yarlung-Tsangpo Gorge is one of them, a place carved by time, protected by nature, and visited only by the brave, the curious, and the very, very lucky. There are remote places, There are isolated places. And then there is Machuo, a valley so deeply hidden within the eastern Himalayas that for centuries, outsiders believed it was a myth, a place spoken of in whispers, a place wrapped in mist and mystery, a place cut off from the world not by distance, but by nature's sheer determination. Machuo, also known as Medog, is often called the last isolated county in China, and for good reason. It was the final county in the entire country to be connected to the outside world, only gaining a reliable road in 2013. And even today, that road is regularly destroyed by landslides, earthquakes, and violent storms. Before that, reaching Machuo required crossing some of the most dangerous terrain on the planet. It was not just a journey. It was a test of endurance, caution, and respect for a landscape that did not want to be disturbed. A place guarded by mountains. To understand why Machuo remained inaccessible for so long, imagine a valley encircled by a fortress of mountains, sharp, steep, towering peaks that rise like walls. The Himalayas surrounding Machuo are not gentle slopes. They are cliffs that drop suddenly into rivers, ridges that crumble underfoot, and paths carved along vertical rock faces. Every entry route into Machuo once passed through landslide zones, earthquake lines, glacial rivers, unstable cliff paths, dense, choking forest, monsoon-devastated slopes. This is not an ordinary valley. It is a natural fortress, a place where the earth intentionally folds in on itself, creating layers of barriers that make travel nearly impossible. Even today, many locals say the mountains are alive, protective, unpredictable, and unwilling to open a path unless they choose to. The bridge of no return. Before the modern road existed, the only way to enter Machuo was to cross a suspension bridge that hung like a thread between mountains, the Damolag Glacier Bridge. Imagine walking across a narrow wooden walkway, suspended by ropes, swaying in the wind, with nothing but a roaring river and jagged rocks far below. This was not an option for the faint-hearted. It was a crossing that separated the determined from the doomed. After the bridge, travelers still faced 80 kilometers of treacherous mountain trails, unpredictable weather that changed instantly, rivers that flooded without warning, trails that collapsed behind them. To reach Machuo was to gamble with nature. And yet, people still tried, drawn by the valley's beauty, its mystery, and its isolation. But many never made it. A journey through 4 seasons in one day. One of the strangest things about the route to Machuo is how the climate transforms as you descend. Within a single day of travel, a person might experience one snow-covered peaks, cold, thin air, ice crunching under boots, 2 alpine forests, tall pines, frozen streams, quiet trails, 3 subtropical rainforest, humidity, dripping leaves, thick vines, 4 warm valley floors, rice paddies, fruit trees, vibrant greenery. It is like walking through different worlds stacked vertically on top of one another. Each layer brings new dangers. High altitudes strain the lungs. Cliffs test balance and nerves. Forests hide leeches, insects, and slippery ground. Rainfall turns soil into mudslides. The journey feels almost symbolic, as though nature wants to make sure you truly deserve to see what lies at the center. A valley of unexpected beauty. Those who reached Machuo speak of a place unlike any other in Tibet. Here, the air is softer, the colors brighter, the land more fertile. Unlike the cold, barren highlands Tibet is known for, Machuo is. Lush green, warm, alive. Bananas grow here. Grapes grow here. Flowers bloom year-round. Waterfalls pour down mountain walls in silver streams. Rivers wind through the valley in long, peaceful curves. It feels less like the roof of the world and more like a hidden garden. This contrast between the harsh approach and the paradise that lies within makes Machuo seem almost magical, a secret the earth tried to protect. The people who live in isolation. Machuo's residents lived for centuries in near-total isolation. Their culture, traditions, and beliefs developed with minimal outside influence. Life here is simple: farming the fertile land, herding animals, practicing ancient Buddhist traditions, building wooden homes with mountain views, living according to nature's cycles. Because the valley is so remote, its communities maintain unique customs found nowhere else. For outsiders, Machuo feels like stepping back in time, a world untouched by modern noise. But that isolation also came with hardship. Medical care was limited. Trade was nearly impossible. Supplies were entirely dependent on dangerous trails. When food ran short, people endured. When weather cut off routes, they waited. When help was needed, it came slowly or not at all. Machuo was both a paradise and a prison. Whymotuo remained unreachable for so long. The region's inaccessibility is the result of a perfect combination of natural challenges. 1. Violent monsoons, rainstorms trigger landslides by the thousands. Trails can vanish in minutes. 2. Earthquake zones, the valley sits on active fault lines. Rockfalls occur year-round. 3. Himalayan barriers, sharp peaks and unstable slopes block every approach. 4. Unpredictable weather, fog blinds travelers. Snow arrives without warning. Heat rises suddenly. 5. River obstacles, wild, fast-moving rivers cut through every route. 6. Infrastructure collapse, even modern engineering struggles here. The new road is constantly destroyed and rebuilt. In Machuo, nothing stays stable for long. The earth decides when the valley may open its doors. A place that still feels protected even though a road now technically connects Machuo to the outside world. Locals say it does not change the valley's soul. Many days, the road is washed away. Sometimes landslides make it impassable for weeks. Sometimes maintenance workers must rebuild entire sections from scratch. In other words, the valley remains unreachable, not all the time, but unpredictably, which can be even more dangerous. Machuo has not fully surrendered its isolation. It still holds itself apart, still resists being reached easily. And this resistance may be its greatest protection. In a world that becomes smaller every year, Machuo reminds us that some places are meant to stay wild, to stay hidden, to stay sacred. A place nature wrapped in mountains not to punish humanity, but to preserve something rare. Some places are unreachable because they are hidden. Some because nature guards them. Some because the land refuses to let people stay. But La Rinconada, Peru, is different. It is reachable technically. People live there technically. There are roads, houses, markets, even a community technically. But the truth is far more unsettling. La Rinconada should not exist. At 5,100 meters, 16,700 feet above sea level, it is the highest permanent settlement on Earth, a city perched so high in the Andes that the human body was never designed to survive here. Every visitor feels it immediately. The thinness of the air, the dizziness, the nausea, the pounding headaches, the constant cold. La Rinconada sits at the edge of human endurance, a city where the altitude attacks the body every second of every day. And yet, thousands of people live here, not because the land is welcoming, but because the gold buried beneath the ice and rock promises a chance at fortune. La Rinconada is not impossible to reach because of distance. It is impossible because of the cost it demands. A journey to the top of the world. To reach La Rinconada, you must travel through the Peruvian Andes, a journey that becomes more brutal the higher you climb. The road twists upward endlessly, bordered by cliffs that drop into emptiness. Breath becomes thinner. The engine strains. The wind grows colder. The world feels quieter. As you approach 5,000 meters, the air contains only half the oxygen found at sea level. Your vision blurs. Your heartbeat accelerates. Your body begs you to turn back. Some people faint. Some vomit. Some collapse unconscious before they even arrive. The altitude does not welcome visitors, it warns them. And yet people continue climbing, pulled by the same hope that built the city in the first place. Gold. A city of survival, not comfort. La Rinconada is not like other towns. There is no running water, no sewage system. Electricity is inconsistent. Trash piles up along roads. The air smells of diesel, smoke, and chemicals used in mining. Buildings lean into one another as if trying to stay upright. Metal sheets serve as walls. Streets are unpaved and muddy. Ice covers everything year-round. Winter never ends at this altitude. Even summer days feel like winter anywhere else. Children play in snow that never melts. Dogs wander between shacks, searching for scraps. People walk with slow, careful steps, their lungs working harder than they should. This is not a city built for living. It is a city built for desperation. The gold that KEEPS people trapped La Rinconada grew rapidly in recent decades because of the gold rush. The mountains around the city hide veins of gold, and miners flood in hoping to strike their fortune. But the mining system here is unlike any other in the world. Workers operate under the cachorreo system. They work for 30 days straight, unpaid. Then, on the 31st day, they are allowed to take as much ore as they can carry out of the mine. No guarantees that it contains gold. No guarantees of profit. No safety equipment. No protection. Just hope and luck. Many miners work for months without earning anything. Some strike gold once and never again. Some never find gold at all. But the possibility of a life-changing discovery keeps them climbing those mountain roads. Hope is the fuel that powers this city, even when the odds are cruel. An environment that breaks the body living in La Rinconada causes long-term damage that cannot be reversed. At this altitude, the heart works harder every hour, blood thickens dangerously. The body grows more red blood cells than it can handle, oxygen deprivation, becomes constant, muscles weaken, sleep becomes shallow, vision deteriorates, headaches are constant companions. Many residents suffer from chronic mountain sickness, a condition caused by long-term exposure to high altitude. Symptoms include difficulty breathing, fatigue, nerve damage, memory loss, cyanosis, heart enlargement. Most people here live with pain every day. Some adapt slightly, some never do. But leaving is not easy. Few earn enough to escape. Few have anywhere else to go. The altitude holds them silently, slowly. A place without a plan. Unlike other cities, La Rinconada grew without structure. There was no government plan, no urban design, no infrastructure development. People arrived. Then more people arrived. Shacks were built, then more shacks, and the city grew without order, logic, or safety. There are no hospitals capable of treating altitude emergencies, no cleaning systems, no environmental protections. Mercury used in gold extraction leaks into water sources. Fumes hang in the air. Cold wind tears through gaps in walls. Snow becomes sludge in the narrow streets. La Rinconada is not a city created for life. It is a city created for survival. A temporary settlement that turned permanent because people ran out of alternatives. The altitude isolates everything. What makes La Rinconada nearly impossible to reach is not the roads, though they are steep and dangerous. It is the altitude. Every supply must be hauled up the mountain. Every machine must operate in thin air. Every person must adapt or suffer. Medical emergencies become disasters. A simple infection becomes life-threatening. A minor injury becomes dangerous because oxygen is scarce and healing takes longer. Visitors cannot stay long. Most can only tolerate a few days before altitude sickness forces them downward. Even experienced climbers describe the height as oppressive. La Rinconada may be populated, but it is profoundly isolated. Isolation not by distance but by physiology, by the limits of human biology. A city that should not exist, but does, and that is what makes La Rinconada one of the most impossible places on Earth. It is too high for healthy living, too cold for comfort, too remote for support, too unregulated for safety, too oxygen-starved for the human body, too dangerous for long-term survival, yet people live here, work here, raise families here, hope here. This paradox is what makes La Rinconada haunting. It is a city built in a place humans were not designed to inhabit, but they do anyway. Not because it is beautiful, not because it is comfortable, but because the promise of gold overshadows the cost. La Rinconada is more than a remote settlement. It is a reminder of human resilience, desperation, and ambition. A place where dreams climb higher than mountains and where survival itself is a daily victory. There are places where humans live because the land allows it. And then there are places where humans live despite the land, places so remote, so cold, and so challenging that life there feels like an act of defiance. Itakortormiut, Greenland, belongs to the second category. This small settlement on the eastern coast of Greenland is one of the most isolated inhabited places on the planet. There are no roads connecting it to the rest of Greenland, no land routes, no easy access by sea, no nearby towns, just ice, ocean, mountains, and a silence deeper than anything most people will ever hear. Only a few hundred people call Itakortormiut home, a community that survives in one of the harshest environments on Earth, at the very border of the world. Reaching this place is a challenge. Living here is something else entirely. A coastline locked in ice for most of the year, Itakortormiut sits beside Scoresby Sound, the largest fjord system on Earth. But despite being next to the ocean, the community remains isolated because the sea is frozen for 9 to 10 months every year. During this time, ships cannot reach the harbor, supply boats stop entirely, fishing becomes dangerous, travel becomes nearly impossible. The sea is not simply cold, it is a solid barrier. Massive ice sheets stretch out for kilometers. Jagged blocks of frozen seawater tower above the surface. The landscape becomes a maze of ice ridges, pressure zones, and frozen plains. Only during a brief window in late summer does the ice pull back just enough to allow supply ships to approach the village. Miss that window, and you wait another year. This alone makes Itakortormiut nearly unreachable. A landscape made of extremes. The land around the settlement is both beautiful and brutal. Endless mountains rise sharply from the coastline. Glaciers carve deep valleys and ice cliffs. Snow covers the ground for most of the year. Winds sweep across the tundra with freezing force. Winter dominates the region, lasting up to 9 months. Temperatures regularly plunge below 30 degrees C, sometimes much colder. Blizzards strike without warning. Darkness swallows the sky for months during polar night. In summer, the opposite happens. The sun never sets. Light glows through the night. The world feels frozen in time. Nature here is absolute. Humans must adapt or they do not survive. No roads, no connections, no easy way out. In most remote places, at least a road connects people to a distant town. Not here. Itakortormiut has no roads leading in or out. The mountains and glaciers make road building impossible. To leave the settlement, you must fly by helicopter to a distant airport, travel by dogsled across frozen terrain, wait for a rare supply boat, or, in summer, take a long and unpredictable boat journey across icy waters. Weather determines everything. If a storm arrives, flights are canceled. If ice conditions shift, boats cannot move. If temperatures drop too low, nothing travels safely. There is no quick exit, no emergency escape route. Isolation is not just a fact, it is a way of life. A community built on tradition and resilience despite its harshness. Itakortormiut is not empty. A small Inuit community lives here, carrying forward traditions passed down for generations. Hunting and fishing are essential for survival. People rely on seals, polar fish, musk ox, Arctic hares, occasional polar bear hunts. Strictly regulated, the environment may be fierce, but the people have learned to live with it, not against it. Dogsled teams still race across frozen fjords. Children grow up understanding cold, wilderness, and silence. Families gather in warm wooden homes built to withstand Arctic winds. Life is simple but meaningful. The rhythm of survival shapes everything, from meals to travel to traditions. The darkness that changes the mind. One of the hardest parts of living in Itakortormiut is not the cold or isolation. It is the darkness. During polar winter, the sun does not rise for weeks. The world becomes a dim blue, then black. Days lose structure. Time feels suspended. People rely on routine, shared meals, and community activities to stay mentally grounded. The cold attacks the body. The darkness attacks the mind. But when the long night finally ends, the first light on the horizon feels like a celebration, proof that seasons still move, even in this frozen corner of the world. The wildlife that outnumbers humans around Itacortormiat, wildlife roams freely. Polar bears sometimes wander near the settlement. Arctic foxes slip between rocks and ice. Walruses bask on floating ice platforms. Whales breach in the fjord during rare ice-free months. Nature dominates completely. People learn to respect it, to watch for bears when walking outside, to avoid unstable ice, to recognize storm patterns before they strike. You do not conquer this land. You coexist with it. And even then, survival is never guaranteed. Why ITTOQQORTORM? IT is almost impossible to reach. Its isolation comes from several layers. 1. Sea ice. The ocean is frozen most of the year. 2. No roads. There is no land connection to anywhere. 3. Harsh winter. Extreme cold discourages travel. 4. Unpredictable weather. Storms shut down flights and boats instantly. 5. Geographic barriers. Mountains and glaciers surround the settlement. 6. Limited transportation. Helicopters and seasonal ships are the only access. 7. Distance. The nearest major settlement is hundreds of kilometers away. Even with modern technology, reaching this place requires coordination, luck, and favorable conditions, things that do not come easily in the Arctic. A reminder of human limits. What makes Itacortormiat so extraordinary is not just its isolation, but the fact that people thrive here despite it. This settlement should not exist. The land does not welcome life. The sea does not welcome boats. The sky does not welcome aircraft. The cold does not welcome comfort. Yet people remain. Living, hunting, laughing, raising families, and maintaining warmth in a world of eternal ice. Itacortormiat is not just remote. It is a living symbol of resilience. A reminder that even in the harshest corners of the planet, human spirit can build a home where nature tries hardest to keep one out. There are cold places on Earth. There are freezing places. And then there is Oimiakin, a village so brutally cold, so far removed from anything resembling comfort, that it has become a symbol of human endurance. Nestled deep within the Siberian wilderness, Oimiakin is the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on the planet. A place where winter is not a season, it is the default state of existence. Temperatures here have plunged as low as 7 degrees C, 90 degrees F, colder than any temperature ever recorded outside Antarctica. At that point, metal shatters, engines freeze solid, breath turns to ice instantly, eyelashes crust over in seconds. Oimiakin is not a place people visit casually. It is a place people endure, a village at the edge of what the human body can tolerate, yet somehow life continues. A journey through the empty heart of Siberia. Reaching Oimiakin is a journey few attempt. The village sits more than 900 kilometers from the regional capital, Yakutsk, itself one of the coldest cities in the world. To get there, travelers must take the Road of Bones, a long, frozen highway built using forced labor during the Stalin era. It cuts through endless miles of Siberian forest taiga stretching as far as the eye can see. The road is passable, but barely. Ice coats everything. Trucks rattle over uneven ground. Winds howl across the landscape. And the temperature threatens to freeze engines at any moment. If a vehicle breaks down here, the cold can become deadly within minutes. There are no nearby towns, no quick rescue, only snow, emptiness, and silence. It is a road where mistakes cost lives, a road that reminds travelers that Oimiakin is a place reached only by determination. A land frozen year-round. Once you arrive, the first thing you notice is the cold. It is not like cold anywhere else. It does not feel like wind or frost or winter. It feels like pressure. Like the air itself is squeezing your body, like the cold has weight. At 40 degrees C, exposed skin stings. At 50 degrees C, breathing feels sharp. At 60 degrees C, the cold becomes a force, something you can almost hear. Even the small things become difficult. Pens burst. Phones die instantly. Batteries refuse to work. Boot soles crack. Plastic becomes brittle. Frost clings to everything. Life in Oymyakon is lived through layers of clothing, layers of ice, layers of winter. Snow covers the ground for about 8 months of the year. The sun barely rises in winter. Even in warm seasons, temperatures rarely climb above 15 degrees C, 59 degrees F. The land feels permanently suspended between night and cold. How people survive here despite the conditions. Around 500 people call Oymyakon home. Their survival is a combination of tradition, adaptation, and sheer resilience. One heating never stops. Every building has a furnace burning 24/7. If the fire goes out, the pipes freeze. If the pipes freeze, the house becomes unlivable. Firewood must be collected constantly, a task made harder by the frozen ground. Two vehicles run continuously. Cars and trucks are kept running for hours, sometimes all day, because turning them off means they may never start again. Antifreeze is not enough here. Engines simply freeze solid. 3 diets adapt to the environment. Agriculture is almost impossible, so diets rely heavily on meat and fat. Reindeer horsemeat, frozen fish, animal fat broths, and stews. Vegetables are rare and often imported at high cost. For clothing is survival gear. Residents wear layers of fur, insulated boots, and specialized hoods designed to trap warmth and block out wind. Every trip outside is a calculated decision. 5. Community is essential in a place this unforgiving. People depend on each other, sharing supplies, helping repair homes, looking after children, checking on neighbors during storms. Isolation builds communities tighter than cities ever could. The cold that shapes everything. The cold affects daily life in ways most people never imagine. Water pipes cannot be buried. The ground is frozen solid, permanently. Instead, pipes run above ground or are heated constantly. Digging a grave requires lighting fires on the ground for hours just to soften the permafrost enough to break through. Breathing outdoors feels like inhaling ice. Talking too long causes moisture to freeze around your mouth. Walking outside at night, the air sparkles with frost, as if the cold itself has turned to dust. Dogs must be protected from frostbite. Outdoor toilets freeze instantly. Even masks worn during winter become stiff and brittle. Everything in Oymyakon must be designed for survival. A beauty that belongs to winter. For all its danger, Oymyakon has a stark beauty. Mountains rise quietly around the valley. Snow reflects moonlight like silver. Frozen trees stand like sculptures. Stars shine brighter than in most places on Earth. During the rare clear days, the sun glows softly on the horizon, painting the sky pink and gold. There is a peace here, a stillness found only in places untouched by traffic, buildings, and noise. But beauty in Oymyakon is always paired with threat. Nature may be stunning, but it never becomes gentle. A cold that refuses to let go. What makes Oymyakon nearly impossible to reach, and even harder to live in, is not just the temperature. It is the combination of one extreme cold, some of the lowest temperatures ever recorded on Earth. 2. Geographic isolation, hundreds of kilometers of wilderness in every direction. 3. Dangerous travel routes, the road of bones is an unforgiving journey. 4. Limited infrastructure, no airports nearby, no railways, no easy transport. 5. Survival demands every aspect of life is harder here, from eating to heating to breathing. 6. Psychological pressure, long dark winters test mental endurance. 7. Permanently frozen ground, nothing grows. Everything must be imported or hunted. This is not a place you simply move to. It is a place you survive, a place where winter reigns and humans bow to it. Why people still live here despite the challenges. People remain in Oymyakon because It is their ancestral home. Their livelihoods depend on reindeer herding and fishing. Community bonds are strong. Life here is simple, quiet, and predictable. They have adapted in ways outsiders cannot imagine to them. Oymyakon is not a frozen wasteland. It is home, a place of identity, resilience, and tradition. And that is perhaps the most remarkable thing of all. Human beings have found a way to live in a place where life should not be possible. Most natural barriers on Earth have been conquered. Mountains cut through with tunnels, oceans crossed by ships and planes, deserts mapped and crossed with ease. But then there is the Darien Gap, a stretch of land so wild, so lawless, and so unforgiving that even modern civilization could not force a road through it. It is the only break in the Pan-American Highway, a road system meant to link North and South America. Thousands of miles of continuous pavement, interrupted by 100 miles of pure jungle chaos between Panama and Colombia. Here, the forest is not just dense, it is impenetrable. A living, breathing wall of trees, mud, rivers, swamps, mountains, insects, predators, and dangers that shift with every rainfall. The Darien Gap is more than remote, more than wild, more than dangerous. It is a place where the modern world stops and the ancient world takes over. The land that refused a highway. Governments tried for decades to connect the continents. Engineers surveyed the land. Plans were drawn. Routes were mapped. And yet every attempt to build a road failed, not because of a lack of money, not because of engineering limitations, not because of political disagreements, but because the jungle refused. The gap has mountains too steep to cut, swamps too deep to cross, rivers too violent to bridge, rainfall that turns soil into sludge, forests that grow thick enough to hide a person standing a meter away, animals that stalk silently through the undergrowth. A climate that destroys equipment faster than it can be repaired. Roads begin here, and then disappear into the jungle, reclaimed by vines, mud, and silence. Even today, satellite images show the Pan-American Highway approaching the gap, then stopping abruptly, like humanity reached a wall and chose not to challenge it. A world with no maps and no trails in the Darien Gap. Maps are useless. Rivers change course after every storm. Bridges built by locals vanish overnight. Animal paths mislead travelers into dead ends. Swamps expand and contract unpredictably. This place constantly rearranges itself. There are no reliable trails, only temporary routes that dissolve with the next rainfall. The forest canopy is so dense that GPS signals are weak or non-existent. Visibility drops to almost nothing. You cannot see more than a few steps ahead. Explorers describe feeling like they are walking in circles, even with compasses. Time loses meaning. Direction loses meaning. All that remains is survival. The jungle that fights back. The Darien Gap is one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, and one of the most hostile you must face. The terrain. Mountains rise suddenly out of swamps. Mud traps your legs to the knee, roots trip your feet, rock faces crumble under your weight. 2. The climate. Humidity reaches nearly 100%. Clothes never dry. Heat exhausts you within hours. Rain pours without warning. 3. The wildlife. Jaguars patrol the forest. Poisonous snakes hide under leaves. Spiders cling to branches overhead. Mosquitoes swarm in clouds thick enough to blur vision. Many of these insects carry malaria, dengue, and other deadly diseases. Even water becomes dangerous. Rivers rise suddenly, currents sweep travelers away, and parasites live in still pools. Everything in the gap has teeth: the vegetation, the animals, the rivers, the weather. The human danger, a region ruled by survival nature, is only half the threat. The Darien Gap is infamous for being one of the most lawless regions on Earth. Because it is so remote, it has become a haven for armed groups, smugglers, drug traffickers, bandits, guerrillas. Illegal migration routes. Travelers risk kidnapping, theft, or worse. Entire sections of the gap are controlled by groups who do not want outsiders passing through. This human danger is one of the main reasons the region remains untouched. Governments avoid it because controlling it would require massive military operations in hostile terrain. Even locals rarely enter the deepest parts. A place where expeditions disappear throughout history, explorers attempted to cross the Darien Gap. Some succeeded barely. Some turned back defeated. Some were never seen again. Many expeditions underestimated the jungle. They thought it would be difficult but manageable. Instead, they found themselves fighting. Endless mud, landslides, sudden flooding, venomous bites, exhaustion, starvation, dehydration in the Darien Gap. Distance is deceptive. Walking a mile can take hours. 10 miles can take days. Supplies run out quickly. Shelter is difficult to find. Rain destroys equipment. Animals steal food at night. Even experienced survivalists have called this region the most brutal environment on Earth. The people who call the Gap home despite its dangers. The Darien Gap is not empty. Indigenous tribes such as the Mbara and Waunan have lived here for generations. They know the forest intimately, its paths, its rivers, its rhythms. But even they avoid certain areas. They navigate with knowledge passed down through centuries, reading the wind, following animal trails, using subtle signs in vegetation, moving silently to avoid predators, understanding which rivers are safe to cross, recognizing the difference between harmless and deadly insects to them. The jungle is not an enemy, but it is not a friend either. It is a force, a presence, a world that must be respected every second. The gap that refuses to close. Engineers still occasionally propose building a highway through the Darien Gap. But these efforts collapse almost immediately because 1. The environment is too unstable. Landslides destroy construction. 2. The climate destroys machinery. Rust, rot, and mold spread rapidly. 3. The terrain is unpredictable. Swamps swallow equipment. 4. Human conflict makes work dangerous. Construction crews would require constant protection. 5. Conservationists resist development. The gap contains rare species and protected tribes. 6. Diseases spread rapidly. Workers cannot stay long. The gap remains unconquered, a final frontier that technology, governments, and explorers have repeatedly failed to break. Why the Darien Gap is one of the most impossible places on Earth. Its inaccessibility comes from a perfect mix of impenetrable rainforest, unstable mountains, deep swamps, violent rivers, deadly wildlife, disease, extreme humidity, lack of maps or trails, armed groups, no safe transportation, no infrastructure, no rescue options. The Darien Gap is not remote because it is far away. It is remote because the land itself refuses to be tamed, mapped, crossed, or understood. It remains a crack between two continents, a space where civilization stops and the primordial world begins, a place where the earth whispers, "Not here, not yet." Most impossible places are harsh, frozen deserts, deadly jungles, unreachable cliffs. But some are impossible for a different reason. They are simply too far from everything else. The Pitcairn Islands, located in the remote South Pacific, are one of the most isolated inhabited places on the planet. A cluster of volcanic rocks surrounded by endless ocean, no airports, no harbors for large ships, no easy path to or from the outside world. Just a tiny community living on a speck of land lost in an ocean so vast that it seems designed to keep the island hidden. Pitcairn is not unreachable because the land is hostile. It is unreachable because the world around it is infinite. A place where civilization feels like a rumor and where the sea is both protector and prison. The middle of nowhere, literally. To understand Pitcairn's isolation, picture this. The nearest inhabited land is more than 500 kilometers, 310 miles away. The nearest airport is nearly 2,000 kilometers, 1,200 miles away. No planes land here. No cruise ships arrive. No ferries operate here. Just open ocean, stretching outward in every direction like a blue desert. To reach Pitcairn, you must fly to Tahiti or New Zealand, then to the tiny island of Mangareva, then board a supply ship that travels for more than 30 hours across unpredictable seas. If the waves are too strong, you wait. If the weather changes, you turn back. If the ocean decides otherwise, you do not arrive at all. There are no alternative routes, no shortcuts, no last-minute flights. Pitcairn can only be reached on nature's schedule, not yours. A land of 50 people and endless sea, the entire population of Pitcairn is around 50 people, sometimes fewer. This makes it one of the smallest communities on Earth. The town, if it can be called that, sits on a slope overlooking the Pacific. Wooden houses, narrow dirt roads, wind carving through palm trees, a silence broken only by waves and the occasional call of birds. There are no large stores, no hospitals, no police force, no busy streets, no traffic. Just a handful of families, living a life shaped by their complete separation from the rest of the world. This isolation creates a sense of peace, but also vulnerability. Everything they need must come by ship. If a storm delays supplies, the island waits. If medicine runs low, people ration carefully. If machinery breaks, repairs take months. Pitcairn is a place where patience is not a virtue, it is survival. The legend of the Bounty Mutineers' Pitcairn story is as dramatic as its location. In 1789, crew members aboard the British ship HMS Bounty mutinied, overthrowing their captain. Led by Fletcher Christian, the mutineers fled across the Pacific, searching for a place beyond the reach of the British Navy. They found Pitcairn, a remote island so inaccurately charted that no one thought to look for them there. Hidden by the ocean and erased by bad maps, the mutineers burned their ship and built a new life with Polynesian companions. Their descendants still live on Pitcairn today, a living link to one of the most famous maritime stories in history. But the same isolation that protected the mutineers now challenges their descendants. The world forgot Pitcairn, and sometimes it feels like the island prefers it that way. The sea that defines everything, the ocean around Pitcairn, is magnificent but unforgiving. Waves explode against black volcanic cliffs. Currents swirl with unpredictable force. Storms arise quickly, shaking the island with wind and water. Boats struggle to land safely. Pitcairn has no natural harbor, only a small landing point called Bounty Bay, named after the ship buried beneath its waters. Here, residents must time their boats with precision. A wrong moment means boats crash against rocks or cannot dock at all. Supply ships anchor offshore, and goods are transported to land using longboats powered by the residents themselves. Everything must be lifted, carried, pulled, and unloaded by hand. This is the reality of living in a place the ocean guards fiercely. A life without modern normals on Pitcairn, everyday life looks nothing like modern society. There is one small store that sells limited goods. There is one schoolhouse for the few children. Electricity runs only at certain hours. Internet exists, but slowly and expensively. Water comes from rain collection systems. There are no restaurants, no bars, no movie theaters, no malls. Celebrations, gatherings, meals, and entertainment all happen among the same small group of people who share the island. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone helps everyone. Everyone depends on everyone. This can feel comforting or confining. Isolation binds the community together, but it also traps them within a world too small for dreams that require travel, opportunity, or change. Nature THAT development. Pitcairn's geography prevents expansion. Most of the island is steep cliffs, jagged rocks, and dense vegetation. Only a few flat areas are suitable for houses or gardens. Walking around the island often means climbing, slipping, cutting through foliage, or navigating narrow paths carved into the hillsides. There are no airports because the island is too small and uneven. There are no large ships because the cliffs make docking dangerous. There are no roads around the island because the terrain is too steep. Pitcairn is not meant for growth. It is meant to remain just as it is, a rock in the ocean that time forgot. Why Pitcairn is almost impossible to reach. It isn't dangerous wildlife. It isn't deadly cold. It isn't jungle thickness. It is isolation, pure and overwhelming. Pitcairn is unreachable because 1. There is no airport, no plane can land here. 2. There is no harbor for large vessels, ships must anchor far offshore. 3. Supply ships arrive only a few times a year, missing one creates months of delay. 4. The surrounding ocean is unpredictable, strong winds and big waves block access. 5. It is thousands of kilometers from major population centers, no nearby infrastructure exists. 6. Communication with the outside world is limited, help is far away. 7. The island's terrain prevents expansion, no room for runways, ports, or highways. Pitcairn sits at the intersection of solitude and survival, one of the last true pockets of isolation left on Earth. The beauty of being unreachable, yet Pitcairn's inaccessibility is also its charm. The waters are crystal blue. Stars shine brighter than almost anywhere else. The cliffs glow orange at sunrise. Birds soar in peaceful silence. Vegetation grows wild and untouched. It feels like a world paused in time, a place where the modern age has not yet arrived, a place where the sea keeps secrets and the land keeps stories. Pitcairn is one of the most impossible places to reach, not because it is hostile, but because it is hidden in plain sight, protected by vastness, distance, and the will of the ocean. There are places that feel empty. Then there are places that feel abandoned. And finally, there are places like the Kerguelen Islands, so remote, so windswept, and so unreachable that they feel like the Earth's attempt to erase a location from the map entirely. Located in the far southern Indian Ocean, halfway between Africa, Antarctica, and Australia, the Kerguelen Islands are sometimes called the Desolation Islands. A name that fits perfectly. No permanent residents, no airports, no easy route. Just 7,000 square kilometers of volcanic rock, glaciers, and violent ocean weather sitting alone in one of the most isolated corners of the world. The only way to reach these islands is by ship, not a cruise ship, not a ferry, a specialized research vessel that makes the journey only a few times a year. Even then, arrival is never guaranteed, because the Kerguelen Islands are protected not by walls or wilderness, but by the ocean itself, an ocean that does not welcome visitors. A world surrounded by nothing. Imagine standing on a rocky shore, looking at an ocean that stretches outward in every direction. No nearby continents, no passing ships, no distant lights, just water, thousands of kilometers of it. That is the Kerguelen experience. These islands are so far from civilization that they seem detached from time. Weather moves freely here, unimpeded by land masses. Storms form suddenly. Wind screams across the plains. Waves crash against cliffs with a force that shakes the ground. It is a world governed entirely by nature, untouched, undeveloped, and unwilling to change. The journey that feels endless, reaching the Kerguelen Islands, is an expedition, not a trip. It begins with a flight to Réunion or Madagascar. From there, a French supply ship called the Marion Dufresne sails south for 6 days, across some of the roughest seas on Earth. Passengers experience ceaseless waves, storm winds, frozen salt spray, days without seeing land, nights where the ship feels swallowed by darkness. The Indian Ocean at these latitudes is known as the Roaring Forties and Furious Fifties, named for the violent winds that circle the globe unchecked by continents. The journey alone keeps most people away. There are no shortcuts, no alternate routes, no flights, no rescue options. You arrive only if the sea permits it, and many voyages have turned back when conditions grew too dangerous. A land that feels uninhabited because it is the Kerguelen Islands have no permanent human population. Only a small rotating group of scientists and technical staff live temporarily at Portox Franchise, the island's lone research station. There are no villages, no farms, no shops, no schools, no hotels. Just a cluster of research buildings surrounded by millions of seabirds, volcanic peaks, and empty silence. The land feels prehistoric. Jagged mountains carved by ancient glaciers, moss and lichen clinging to rocky soil, deep fjords that slice into the coastline, black volcanic plains, waterfalls cascading off cliffs, beaches littered with kelp and bones. The environment is raw and untamed, beautiful in a way that feels lonely and unsettling. Wind that never rests. If one had to choose a defining feature of Kerguelen, it would be the wind. It does not blow here, it attacks. Wind speeds regularly exceed 100 km/h, 62 mph. Gusts can topple equipment, tear tents apart, and make walking nearly impossible. Stepping outside can feel like pushing against an invisible wall. The air roars so loudly that conversations become difficult. The landscape seems to vibrate under the constant pressure. Trees cannot grow here, not because of temperature, but because the wind kills seedlings before they rise more than a few centimeters. This is one of the few places on Earth where natural forests cannot exist at all. The wind shapes everything. A climate that tests every living thing. Though the islands are not as cold as Antarctica, the weather is relentless. Temperatures hover just above freezing year-round. Rain falls frequently. Snow arrives suddenly. Fog blankets the land without warning. The sun rarely appears for long. The climate is not extreme in numbers, but extreme in persistence. Cold that never lifts, wind that never stops, storms that never seem to leave. Only the hardiest species survive here. Penguins, elephants, seals, albatrosses, petrels, giant insects adapted to low temperatures. Most of the islands remain untouched by humans because moving through them is difficult. Rivers run fast. Cliffs block routes. Mud and volcanic soil make walking exhausting. It is isolation within isolation. No harbor, no airport, no escape. One reason the Kerguelen Islands remain unreachable is simple. There is no proper harbor. The coastline is bordered by steep cliffs and rough seas. Even supply ships cannot dock directly. They must offload cargo using smaller boats, a dangerous process that depends entirely on weather. If waves rise even slightly, unloading must stop. There is also no airstrip. The terrain is too uneven and windy for aircraft. Helicopters cannot fly in most weather conditions. This means no emergency evacuations, no quick access, no tourism, no rapid resupply, no medical flights. Anyone who arrives must be prepared to wait weeks or months before another ship comes. Isolation is absolute. A history of failed settlements. Humans tried long ago to settle the Kerguelen Islands. Whalers came, seal hunters came, explorers came, even sheep farmers tried to establish a presence. Every attempt failed. The reasons were always the same: isolation, storms, lack of arable land, poor soil, dangerous seas, inability to sustain a population. Nature simply rejected human settlement. The islands remain largely as they were centuries ago, silent, wild, untouched. Why the Kerguelen Islands are one of the most impossible places to reach. This isolation comes from a perfect combination of challenges. 1. No airport. Planes cannot land. Helicopters are unreliable. 2. No natural harbor. Ships struggle to dock safely. 3. Extreme distance, thousands of kilometers from any major landmass. 4. Violent seas. The roaring 40s make travel hazardous. 5. Relentless wind. Constant storms make movement difficult. 6. Limited access. Only a supply ship visits a few times a year. 7. Harsh climate. Cold, wet, windy conditions year-round. 8. Inhospitable terrain. Volcanic rock, mud, cliffs, and ice prevent easy travel. The Kerguelen Islands are not unreachable because they are deadly, but because they are untouchably remote. A place Earth placed so far from everything else that it remains suspended between emptiness and eternity. The beauty of desolation, and yet, for those who reach the Kerguelen Islands, the reward is something rare. Silence deeper than memory, landscapes untouched by humans, seas filled with life, skies crowded with giant birds, a sense of standing at the edge of the world. The islands remind us that there are still places where nature reigns without interruption, places where humans visit only briefly, then leave without leaving a mark. The Kerguelen Islands do not resist exploration. They simply stand apart from everything else, a pocket of pure desolation and pure wonder at the bottom of the world. There are remote places, there are forgotten places, but Bouvet Island is something else entirely. A speck of land in the middle of the southern Atlantic Ocean, so far from civilization that it feels like a lost planet drifting in blue emptiness. It is the most isolated island on Earth, surrounded by thousands of kilometers of dangerous sea in every direction, uninhabited, mysterious, and nearly impossible to reach. No airports, no docks, no settlements, no vegetation, just a frozen volcanic island wrapped in glaciers, battered by storms and circled by cold, violent waters. Bouvet Island is one of the most unreachable places on the planet, not because the land is hostile, but because the world around it refuses to let anyone near. A dot lost in an endless ocean, Bouvet Island sits roughly halfway between Antarctica and Africa, but it is not close to either. The nearest land is more than 1,600 kilometers away. Imagine standing on a cliff and knowing the closest human being is farther than most countries are wide. This is a place where the horizon is empty in every direction. No ships, no aircraft, no evidence of humanity, just the rhythm of waves crashing against cliffs, the cries of seabirds, and the wind that never stops. Bouvet feels less like part of Earth and more like a fragment of another world. A volcanic island frozen in ice. Bouvet Island is a volcanic peak, but you would never know it by looking. 93% of the island is covered in ice. Glaciers blanket everything. Steep cliffs drop directly into the ocean. Snowstorms tear across the land year-round. The few exposed rocks are dark, jagged, and wind-carved. Even the beaches, rare and tiny, are made of black volcanic sand. The interior is impossible to reach without specialized climbing gear. The cliffs are too steep, the ice too slippery, the wind too powerful. Some expeditions have tried to scale the island. A few succeeded, many failed. The land itself feels like it was never meant to be touched. The ocean that blocks all approaches the waters around Bouvet Island are some of the roughest on Earth. Massive swells, fierce winds, sub-zero temperatures, constant storms, ships approaching the island face, 10-meter waves, violent currents, icebergs drifting unpredictably, sudden weather shifts, fog that hides the cliffs until it's too late. There is no harbor, no calm bay, no safe landing point. The cliffs rise straight out of the sea like walls. Landing a boat is almost impossible. Expeditions must use inflatable rafts, timing their approach between waves, hoping the ocean doesn't smash them against rock. Even then, many never make it ashore. Bouvet Island does not simply sit in the ocean, it is defended by it. A place with no human history. Almost every landmass on Earth has some human story, a past of exploration, settlement, or myth. Bouvet Island has none. No tribe ever lived here. No sailors used it as a stop. No explorers claimed it for shelter. When it was first discovered in 1739, no one even landed. It took nearly 200 years before a person set foot on the island, and even then the visit was brief, dangerous, and nearly fatal. Bouvet has no ancient ruins, no carvings, no settlements, no artifacts, just emptiness, ice, and wind. It is a place untouched by human hands, preserved exactly as it has been for thousands of years. The island that tries to hide Bouvet Island is notoriously difficult to locate. Clouds cover it constantly. Fog rolls across the sea. Storms distort visibility. Even satellites struggle to get a clear image at certain times of the year. In fact, early explorers often misrecorded its position. Some believed it disappeared entirely. Others thought it was a myth. It is an island that does not want to be found and occasionally succeeds in hiding from modern navigation. Only with advanced GPS and patient timing can ships approach it reliably. Yet even then, the sea often decides to turn them away. A mysterious anomaly. The LIFERAFT incident Bouvet Island is uninhabited, and yet in 1964 a research team found something strange, a lifeboat. A single, weather-beaten lifeboat sitting on the island's tiny beach, but there were no people, no notes, no ship logs, no wreckage, no bodies. And the island was, as always, unreachable for any ordinary vessel. To this day, no one knows where the lifeboat came from, who used it, or what happened to them. The sea keeps secrets, and Bouvet Island is where many of them wash ashore. A sanctuary for wildlife, not humans. While humans cannot survive here, wildlife thrives. Penguins gather in huge colonies, elephant seals lounge along icy beaches, migratory birds nest on cliffs, whales circle nearby waters, Antarctic sea life fills the surrounding ocean. Bouvet Island is a sanctuary, a place where nature remains wild and unaltered. Scientists occasionally visit to study ecosystems untouched by human influence. They stay in temporary shelters, always aware that the ocean could cut off departure at any moment. Here, humans are guests, briefly tolerated, never welcomed. Why Bouvet is one of the most impossible places to reach. The reasons form a perfect storm of isolation. One extreme distance, thousands of kilometers from any mainland. Two violent seas, waves, and currents that make navigation life-threatening. 3. No harbor boats cannot dock safely anywhere. 4. Steep ice-covered cliffs, landings require dangerous raft approaches. 5. Harsh climate, freezing temperatures, constant storms, dense fog. 6. No infrastructure, no shelters, no supplies, no safe zones. 7. Inconsistently mapped location, weather often hides the island from view. 8. Uninhabited and uninhabitable, no support, no population, no emergencies possible. Bouvet Island is unreachable not because it is actively hostile, but because everything around it, the sea, the weather, the geography, conspires to keep it isolated. It is a place Earth placed far away, surrounded by a ring of violent water, as if to say, this land is not for you. The beauty of a place never touched for those who manage to land, a rare and risky achievement. Bouvet offers a haunting beauty. White glaciers glisten under faint sun. Fog drifts across volcanic cliffs. Penguins march along frozen beaches. The ocean crashes endlessly, echoing through the air. Silence stretches so deep it feels ancient. Bouvet Island is a glimpse into the world before humans, raw, cold, untouched. A land without footprints. A place where nature reigns absolutely. Most places on Earth have been shaped over millions of years. Mountains rise slowly. Forests take centuries to grow. Islands erode, reshaped by waves and wind. But Surtsey is different. Surtsey, off the southern coast of Iceland, is one of the youngest islands on the planet, a newborn piece of Earth, created in 1963 during a violent volcanic eruption beneath the sea. One moment, the ocean's surface was calm. The next, explosions of fire, ash, steam, and molten rock burst upward, breaking through the water like a birth. Over 4 years, the volcano continued to erupt, building an island where none had existed before. Surtsey rose straight out of the sea in a spectacle of raw creation, a reminder that Earth is still alive, still changing, still capable of creating new lands without human influence. But what makes Surtsey one of the most impossible places to reach is not just its volcanic origin. It is the fact that humans are not allowed to go there. Not tourists, not travelers, not explorers. Only a small number of scientists, under strict supervision, with careful protection to ensure that this island remains untouched, a pure laboratory of nature. Surtsey is forbidden to nearly everyone, because its greatest value lies in never being disturbed. An island born from explosion, the story of Surtse's birth is as dramatic as any natural event in modern history. On November 14, 1963, fishermen saw something unusual, steam rising from the ocean. Moments later, the sea erupted with fire. For weeks, explosions hurled lava, ash, and smoke high into the air. Jets of molten rock blasted upward, solidifying as they fell. Slowly, a volcanic cone formed above the waves. It was Earth creating itself right before human eyes. The eruption continued until 1967, building an island of almost 3 square kilometers. Journalists, scientists, and curious observers watched from boats and aircraft, witnessing a geological event that rarely occurs in recorded history. Surtsey became a symbol, a reminder that new worlds can form in an instant. A place reserved for nature alone. Shortly after Surtsey rose from the ocean, Iceland made a decision that set this island apart from nearly any other land on Earth. They banned all public access. No tourists, no recreational visits, no casual landings. Why? Because scientists recognized a rare opportunity, the chance to watch an ecosystem develop entirely from scratch, without human interference. They wanted to observe how plants arrive, how animals colonize, how soil forms from volcanic ash, how life evolves on brand new land. Allowing people to visit would contaminate the process. A single seed from a shoe, a footprint, a food wrapper, or a stray insect could alter the island's entire ecological development. So Surtsey became a living experiment, protected with extraordinary strictness. Only a handful of researchers visit each year, and they must follow severe protocols. All equipment sterilized, no food scraps left behind, no seeds introduced, no staying overnight, except in controlled facilities. Everything brought in must be removed. Every action documented. Human presence is reduced to the smallest possible footprint. Surtsey is a world where nature grows without interference, and that makes it one of the rarest places on Earth. The slow arrival of life. When the eruptions finally stopped, the island was nothing but black volcanic rock and ash. No plants, no insects, no birds, no soil, no life, just raw earth. But slowly nature began to work. 1. Winds carried seeds. The first plants to grow were mosses and lichens, then grasses, then flowers. Each species told scientists a new chapter of how life spreads. 2 birds arrived next. Seabirds began landing on the island. Eventually, some species nested there, bringing nutrients that enriched the soil through their droppings. With birds came insect seeds caught in feathers. Small creatures clinging to feet. The island became a small oasis of life in the cold Atlantic. 3. Marine life flourished around the shore. Algae, fish, and seals began using the waters near Surtsey. Over time, the island became a stopover for migrating species. Scientists recorded every arrival, every plant root, every nest. Surtsey became a living timeline, a record of how life colonizes new territory. This natural evolution would have been impossible to observe if humans were allowed to interfere. A fragile landscape under constant change. Surtsey's existence is a delicate balance. The island is shrinking. Wind, rain, and waves erode the volcanic rock quickly. Cliffs collapse. Beaches shift. The sea slowly reclaims parts of the island each year. What was once 3 square kilometers has already reduced significantly. In a few centuries, Surtsey may disappear completely beneath the waves, its story preserved only in scientific records and memories. But while it exists, it remains one of the most important natural laboratories in the world. A reminder of creation, a reminder of fragility, a reminder of time. Why Surtsey is one of the most impossible places to reach. Its inaccessibility is not due to danger, though the island can be hazardous. It is inaccessible because humanity made it so. A decision to preserve purity turned Surtsey into a place almost no one will ever see with their own eyes. It is unreachable because 1. It is strictly protected, only approved scientists can visit. 2. Human contamination must be avoided. Even a seed on a shoe could alter its ecosystem. 3. Its small landmass offers no infrastructure, no docks, no shelters, no public paths. 4. It is surrounded by rough seas. Landing conditions are dangerous and unpredictable. 5. It is constantly changing. Parts of the island collapse regularly. 6. Access is limited by law. Violating the protection regulations is illegal. 7. The island's purpose is scientific, not touristic. Its value depends on remaining untouched. Surtsey is one of the most unreachable places in the world because it represents something precious, a world without human interference. The beauty of a place humans step away from. Surtsey is peaceful in a way almost no other place can be. Waves crash against black sand. Birds glide over untouched cliffs. Wind sweeps across the island, carrying seeds and silence. Volcanic rocks still glow faintly in certain areas from ancient heat. There are no roads, no fences, no footprints. It is nature's island, a place where the earth writes its own story without our hands shaping it. Surtsey is unreachable not because it is hostile, but because it is sacred. A reminder that sometimes the greatest gift we can give nature is to leave it alone. There are mountains too tall for comfort, too steep for safety, too dangerous for climbers. And then there is Gangkar, a mountain so remote, so sacred, and so fiercely protected by both nature and culture that no human has ever stood at its summit. Rising to an astonishing 7,570 meters, 24,836 feet, on the border of Bhutan and Tibet, Gangkar is one of the highest peaks on Earth. Yet it remains unclimbed. Not because no one tried, but because the world around it makes the mountain unreachable in every possible way. It is a place where clouds wrap around cliffs like curtains, where storms appear without warning, where glaciers crack underfoot, and where terrain shifts like a living creature. But more than geography, more than weather, more than physical danger, Gangkar is protected by meaning. To the Bhutanese people, this mountain is sacred. Climbing it is forbidden. And so it remains, the highest unclimbed mountain in human history, a place where the earth stands untouched, a silent guardian of the sky. The mountain that hides itself, Gangkar, is located in one of the most remote regions of the Himalayas, a region wrapped in fog, snow, and spiritual significance. Even reaching the base of the mountain is a challenge. Dense forests cloak the lower slopes, glaciers block paths. No roads lead near the peak. Maps of the region are often inaccurate. Weather patterns are unpredictable. Visibility drops to zero without warning. Mountains elsewhere may challenge climbers. Gangkar confuses them. Early expeditions failed to even locate the mountain correctly. The peak seemed to shift behind clouds and ridgelines, hiding itself from view. Some climbers described it as a mountain that chooses when to be seen. In a landscape where entire peaks vanish behind mist, direction becomes uncertain, and even the most skilled mountaineers lose their bearings. This is not a mountain you simply climb. This is a mountain you search for, and most searches end without success. The attempts that failed in the 1980s, Bhutan briefly opened the mountain to foreign climbers. Teams from Japan, Great Britain, and Austria attempted to reach the summit. None succeeded. They faced vertical walls of ice, avalanches triggered by shifting snow, deep crevasses hidden under powder, winds strong enough to knock climbers off their feet, freezing temperatures that made rope handling dangerous. Maps that did not match reality. Gangkar remained untouched. One team reached an elevation never before climbed, but they still fell short of the summit, blocked by a ridge too dangerous to cross. Another team turned back after losing all visibility for days. A third discovered that what they believed to be the summit was actually a false peak. Another hidden ridge stood beyond, unreachable through the fog. The mountain seemed to protect itself with illusions, storms, and silence. The band that froze the mountain in time in 1994, Bhutan permanently banned climbing on peaks above 6,000 meters, not for tourism, not for politics, but for spirituality. The mountains of Bhutan are considered the homes of spirits as sacred places where human intrusion is seen as disrespect. Gangkar Puensum, being the highest of these sacred peaks, was placed under absolute protection. The ban remains in effect today. It is unlikely to ever be lifted. This means no permits are granted, no expeditions are allowed, no exceptions are made. The mountain is closed to climbing indefinitely. The world's highest unclimbed mountain will remain unclimbed. A rare victory for nature in a world where humans climb, conquer, and consume almost everything in their path. A landscape that defies human limits even without the ban. Gangkar Puensum would still be nearly impossible to climb. Its geography is uniquely treacherous. One, unstable snowfields. Large portions of the mountain are covered in deep snow that collapses under pressure. 2, crevasses. Hidden cracks in the glaciers can swallow climbers instantly. 3, high winds. Wind speeds near the summit are fierce enough to rip equipment from hands. 4, avalanches. Slopes are so steep that avalanches occur frequently, often without warning. 5, thin air. At over 7,500 meters, oxygen levels drop drastically, making survival incredibly difficult. 6, remote terrain. Rescue is nearly impossible. Communication is limited. Supplies cannot be easily transported. Even mountains like Everest, which see hundreds of climbers every year, have infrastructure and known routes. Gangkar Puensum does not. Its slopes remain unmapped, its ridges unexplored, its summit untouched. The sacred mystery of the peak to the people of Bhutan: mountains are not obstacles. They are spirits, guardians, living beings. The higher the peak, the more sacred it is considered. Gangkar Puensum is believed to be a powerful spiritual presence, a mountain where deities reside, a protector of valleys and villages below. Climbing it is not just dangerous, it is considered a violation of harmony. This cultural significance adds a layer of meaning no other mountain on Earth possesses. It is not simply unclimbed because it is difficult. It is unclimbed because it is meant to remain that way. A sacred place untouched by human ambition. A mountain protected by both earth and belief. If one looks closely, Gangkar Puensum's inaccessibility is the result of a perfect balance. One, harsh geography, steep, unstable, unpredictable terrain. 2, extreme altitude, life-threatening air pressure and cold. 3, weather unpredictability, storms appear without pattern. 4, remote location, no nearby infrastructure or rescue possibility. 5, cultural prohibition, a legal and spiritual ban on climbing. 6, mapping challenges. Even today, its exact summit is debated. Together, these factors create a mountain that stands alone in the world of exploration, a place humans cannot conquer because neither nature nor culture allows it. The beauty of an untouched summit, Gangkar Puensum, is a reminder that some parts of Earth must remain unclaimed. The wind that circles its summit has never touched human skin. The snow there has never felt a boot. No flag has been planted. No footprint has been left. It is pure, silent, untouched, a mountain that belongs to itself. And that is what makes it one of the most unreachable places on the planet, not just physically, but philosophically. It represents the idea that the world still holds secrets, still holds places beyond our reach, still holds wonders untouched by our ambitions. Gangkar Puensum stands as a guardian of the sky, a reminder of humility, and a symbol of nature's right to remain unconquered. There are landscapes shaped by rivers, landscapes shaped by wind, landscapes shaped by time. And then there is Kamchatka, a peninsula so explosive, so volcanic, and so isolated that it feels like the earth is still being formed beneath your feet. Located in the far east of Russia, stretching into the Pacific Ocean, Kamchatka is one of the most remote regions on the planet. It is cut off from everything by mountains, by wilderness, by weather, and by a history that has kept it locked away from the outside world for decades. Here, more than 300 volcanoes rise from the earth. 29 of them are still active. Geysers erupt from steaming ground. Rivers of lava have carved canyons. Earthquakes rumble without warning. And glaciers lie silently beside boiling springs. Kamchatka is a land of contradiction, fire next to ice, beauty next to danger, silence next to eruption. Reaching it is difficult, exploring it is dangerous, understanding it is nearly impossible. Kamchatka is not just remote. It is a reminder that beneath the thin surface of modern life, the Earth is still alive, still powerful, still unpredictable. A peninsula cut off from the world, Kamchatka lies thousands of kilometers from Moscow and the rest of Russia. There are no land routes connecting it to the country's road network. The peninsula is essentially an island in everything but name. You cannot drive to Kamchatka. You must fly, and only a few flights exist. Storms regularly cancel them. Weather disrupts schedules. Airfields freeze over. But even if you manage to arrive, the isolation continues. Most of Kamchatka has no roads at all. Vast territories are unreachable by car. Only helicopters, rugged off-road vehicles, and boats can navigate its enormous wilderness. Villages lie separated by mountains and volcanic fields. Travel between them can take days. The interior remains almost untouched by development. This is a place where isolation is not a characteristic. It is a defining feature. A land of constant geological awakening, Kamchatka sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most active volcanic regions on Earth. Here, nature is in constant motion. Active volcanoes erupt frequently, sometimes unexpectedly. Ash clouds spread across the sky. Lava rivers flow down slopes. Explosions shake the ground. Some volcanoes are among the most explosive on the planet. Two geysers deep within the Valley of Geysers, one of the largest geyser fields in the world, boiling water shoots dozens of meters into the air. Steam rises from cracks in the earth. Pools bubble violently. The air smells of sulfur. 3 earthquakes. The peninsula experiences frequent earthquakes, some small, some powerful enough to reshape coastlines and trigger landslides. 4 glaciers and ice fields. Beside the fire lies ice, major glaciers that grind down mountains and carve valleys. Kamchatka is a meeting point of heat and cold, chaos and stillness. The land feels awake, breathing, changing. Wildlife that roams without fear. Kamchatka has one of the densest populations of brown bears in the world. They roam freely across forests, rivers, and coastlines, feeding on salmon that fill the streams each summer. Travelers must remain constantly alert. A bear encounter here is not uncommon. Besides bears, the peninsula is home to wolves, reindeer, Arctic foxes, sea otters, massive eagles, seals, and whales along the coast. It is a paradise for wildlife and a challenge for humans. Nature here is not passive. It dominates the land, the movement, the activity. The harsh climate that controls everything. Kamchatka's climate is as dramatic as its geology. Winters are long and brutal. Snow blankets the land for months. Temperatures plunge below freezing. Travel becomes extremely difficult. 2 summers are short but unpredictable. Warm air can disappear instantly. Rainstorms sweep across the land. Fog descends without warning. 3. Winds shape the landscape. Coastal winds can topple trees, scatter debris, and block travel. For many months of the year, entire regions are inaccessible. Even when weather is calm, volcanoes or earthquakes can interrupt travel plans. Kamchatka is a place where nature sets the schedule. The Soviet years, when the peninsula vanished from the map for decades, Kamchatka was a closed military zone under the Soviet Union. No foreigners were allowed to visit. Many parts of the peninsula were hidden from the public. Maps were restricted. Information was controlled. It was home to submarine bases, missile testing grounds, and classified installations. The world outside hardly knew anything about Kamchatka, its volcanoes, geysers, wildlife, or culture. Even after the Soviet Union collapsed, the region remained difficult to access due to limited transportation and rugged geography. This history of secrecy contributed to Kamchatka's reputation as a land untouched by time. A place where few humans ever set foot. The interior of Kamchatka is a wilderness so vast that entire valleys have never been explored. Volcanic craters remain unseen by anyone except birds. Glacial plateaus stretch outward without footprints. Rivers carve through canyons where no human has ever walked. Because there are no roads, reaching these areas requires helicopters, days of hiking, survival skills, navigation across unstable volcanic terrain, endurance against weather and wildlife. Many expeditions turn back. Some never reach their goals. A few disappear completely. Kamchatka is a reminder that there are still corners of Earth where humans are only temporary visitors, not conquerors. People who live with fire despite everything. People do live in Kamchatka. They fish in rivers filled with salmon. They herd reindeer across tundra. They hunt and gather in forests. They build homes near volcanoes that could erupt at any time. Their lives are shaped by cycles of nature, by seasons, storms, migrations, and eruptions. The indigenous Koryak, Eitelman, and even peoples have lived here for centuries, adapting to the land's rhythm. Their traditions teach respect for volcano spirits, mountain animals, rivers, seasons, fire, and ice. They understand something outsiders rarely grasp. Kamchatka is not a place to be controlled. It is a place to be listened to. Why Kamchatka is one of the most impossible places to reach. Isolation, danger, and unpredictability combine to make Kamchatka nearly unreachable. One, no road access to Russia's mainland. The peninsula is cut off from national road networks. 2, harsh climate, snow, storms, and fog block travel. 3, unstable geology, volcanoes and earthquakes disrupt routes. 4, lack of infrastructure, many regions are only accessible by helicopter. 5, massive territory, the peninsula is larger than many countries. 6, Soviet-era secrecy, limited development and access. 7, wildlife hazards, bear encounters are common. 8, inaccessible interior, vast areas remain unexplored. Kamchatka is not just difficult to reach, it is difficult to navigate, survive, and understand. A land protected by fire, by mountains, by ocean, and by silence. The raw beauty of a restless earth despite its challenges. Kamchatka is breathtaking. Volcanic peaks glow red at sunrise. Geyser steam rises like ghosts from the ground. Rivers shimmer with salmon. Bears fish in crystal clear water. Glaciers shine under moonlight. The sky feels close, heavy with clouds and wind. Kamchatka is a world untouched, a world that feels ancient because it is constantly being reborn. It is one of the most impossible places to reach because it is one of the last places where Earth still reveals its power openly, without apology. A place where life continues in the shadow of fire. A place where nature wins every single time. Most deserts are empty. Some are hot. Some are harsh. But the Atacama Desert in northern Chile is something entirely different. It is the driest non-polar desert on Earth, a place where some regions have received no recorded rainfall for centuries, a place so barren that scientists study it to understand what life might be like on Mars. But within this desert lies an even more extreme region, the absolute desert zone, a stretch of land so dead, so silent, so brutally dry that almost nothing survives there, not plants, not insects, not animals, and in some areas not even microbes. This is one of the most unreachable environments on the planet, not because of distance or mountains, but because it offers nothing that life depends on. No water, no shade, no shelter, just endless dryness. The Atacama is the desert where even deserts feel afraid. A land where rain does not exist. To understand the Atacama, imagine a place where rain is a myth. Some weather stations in the desert have never recorded rainfall. Others show gaps of 300 to 500 years between measurable rain. The ground is so dry it cracks into sharp plates. Salt crusts form on the surface where water once evaporated thousands of years ago. The air steals moisture from skin instantly. Even metal rusts slowly because humidity is almost zero. This desert is not merely dry. It is bone dry, space dry, Mars dry. The absolute desert zone is so barren that when scientists search for life in the soil, they found almost none, a discovery unmatched anywhere else on Earth. This makes the region not only unreachable physically, but unreachable biologically. Life avoids it. The sun that never relents, the Atacama, rests between mountains that block moisture from both the Pacific Ocean and the Amazon basin. This creates a lethal combination. Clear skies, intense solar radiation, no rain-bearing clouds, constant dryness, daily temperature extremes. The sun here is relentless, not warm but piercing. Its UV radiation is among the highest recorded on the planet. Skin burns quickly, equipment overheats, water disappears in minutes. In the absolute desert zone, there is nowhere to hide from the sun. No trees, no rocks large enough to create shade, no structures. Just a flat, endless, blinding expanse. Travelers describe the sensation as being watched by the sky. The sun becomes a force of nature, not merely a source of light. A terrain that confuses the mind. The Atacama has landscapes that feel almost alien. Salt flats stretch outward like fractured glass. Copper-colored mountains glow under a cloudless sky. Dry riverbeds twist like veins through lifeless ground. Sand dunes rise and fall like frozen waves. Volcanic rocks poke through cracked earth. The absence of life changes perception. There are no birds to break the silence, no insects buzzing, no plants rustling, no animal tracks, just silence, thick, heavy, absolute silence. It is a silence that unnerves even seasoned explorers, a silence that makes the desert feel aware, like it is holding its breath. Navigation becomes difficult. Landmarks blend together. Heat distortions warp the horizon, creating illusions. This desert does not guide you, it confuses you. A history of lost explorers and failed crossings. The Atacama has swallowed more expeditions than most deserts on Earth. Early travelers underestimated it, believing it was like any other desert, hot, dry, but manageable. They were wrong. Caravans ran out of water. Maps were inaccurate. Rations spoiled in the heat. Travelers became disoriented by the sameness of the landscape. Some turned back. Some died on the journey. Some disappeared entirely, leaving only scattered belongings behind, later found half buried in salt and sand. Even modern hikers take extreme precautions. GPS devices, emergency water reserves, satellite beacons, protective clothing, guides familiar with the terrain. Yet even with all of this, the absolute desert zone remains a place where rescue is nearly impossible. If you become stranded, help is hours or days away, assuming anyone even knows where you are. The desert where science searches for aliens, the lifelessness of the Atacama makes it scientifically invaluable. NASA and other research teams come here to study how life might exist on Mars. The soil's chemical makeup, dryness, and UV levels are strikingly similar to those found on the Martian surface. Rovers and instruments are tested here before being sent to space. If technology can survive the Atacama, it can survive almost anywhere. But even scientists approach the absolute desert zone with caution. Equipment fails quickly. Batteries drain faster under extreme conditions. Sensors malfunction due to dryness. Metal warps under heat. It is one of the few places on Earth where machines break down simply because the environment refuses to tolerate them. No ROADS, no water, no mercy. Many regions of the Atacama have no roads at all. Trails vanish in windstorms. Signs become buried in sand. Vehicles risk tire melt or engine failure from heat. Crossing the desert requires planning water to the exact liter, understanding terrain shifts, avoiding mirages, timing travel to avoid extreme midday sun, knowing how to navigate without landmarks. Rescue services are limited or non-existent. Communication signals fade in remote areas. People who break down in the absolute desert zone have little time before dehydration becomes life-threatening. The desert does not kill quickly, it kills inevitably, unless you respect it fully. The inhuman stillness of the night. At night, the Atacama becomes a different world. Temperatures plummet, stars explode across the sky in perfect clarity. Meteor showers streak through the dark. Milky Way spirals glow above the horizon. It is one of the best stargazing locations on the planet, but the beauty hides danger. The cold can be as severe as the heat. Moisture remains absent. Breathing feels sharp and dry. The silence feels even deeper. Some travelers describe it as standing on another planet. The desert feels eternal, as though time itself has stopped. Why the Atacama is one of the most impossible places on Earth. This desert's inaccessibility is not due to storms or predators. It is due to absence, the absence of everything life depends on. 1. No water. Some areas have gone centuries without rain. 2. Extreme UV radiation, among the highest on Earth. 3. No life, even microbes struggle to survive. 4. No natural shelter, no shade, no trees, no rocks big enough to hide behind. 5. Dangerous heat and cold, burning hot days, freezing nights. 6. Vast emptiness, difficult navigation and mental disorientation. 7. No roads. Some regions are accessible only on foot or specialized vehicles. 8. Extreme isolation. Rescue is nearly impossible. The Atacama is unreachable because it is the closest thing Earth has to another planet. A place where life hesitates, where death is simple, where existence itself feels suspended. The beauty of emptiness. Despite its dangers, the Atacama is mesmerizing. Salt crystals glitter under sunlight. Sand dunes ripple in perfect waves. Volcanoes rise in the distance like ancient guardians. The sky glows pink, orange, and violet at sunrise. Stars fill the night from horizon to horizon. It is a desert of silence, a desert that asks nothing, a desert that gives nothing. The Atacama's absolute desert zone is one of the most impossible places on Earth, not because it resists visitors, but because it ignores them. A land where the world ends not in violence, but in stillness. There are places far from cities, places far from countries, places far from civilization, but Tristan da Cunha stands alone. It is the most remote inhabited settlement on the planet, a tiny island cluster in the South Atlantic Ocean, surrounded by water so vast and so empty that the nearest continent is more than 2,400 kilometers, 1,500 miles away. No airports, no landing strips, no regular flights, no easy way to arrive or depart. Just one small village, fewer than 300 people, and a circular volcano rising from the sea like a lonely sentinel. Tristan da Cunha is a place where life feels suspended between past and present, where neighbors become family, where isolation is not a problem, but a way of life. Yet this isolation also makes Tristan one of the most unreachable places on Earth. It is not dangerous like the Arctic, not deadly like the Atacama, and not forbidden like Surtsey. It is unreachable because the world simply cannot get to it, not easily, not quickly, and not without the permission of the sea. A tiny settlement in the vast Atlantic. Imagine standing on a cliff and knowing that the closest human settlement is farther away than most nations are wide. That is Tristan da Cunha. This island is a volcanic peak rising out of the ocean, the tips of an ancient mountain range that lies mostly underwater. The island is green and windswept, with steep cliffs on one side and softer slopes on the other. There is only one settlement, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. A quiet town with one small general store, a school, a pub, a post office, a few dozen houses, fields where cattle and sheep graze, dirt roads connecting everything. There are no hotels. No major restaurants, no traffic lights. Cars exist, but there are only a handful and nowhere really to go. The village sits beneath towering cliffs, with the sea stretching endlessly beyond. It is peaceful, beautiful, and deeply isolated. The longest journey to a small place reaching Tristan da Cunha requires patience, planning, and a willingness to surrender to the ocean's mood. There is no airport. There will likely never be one. The island is too steep, too small, and too windy for a runway. The only way to arrive is by ship. Not by cruise ship or commercial ferry, but by cargo vessels that travel from South Africa or occasionally from South America. The journey takes 6 to 7 days, depending on weather. 6 days of nothing but waves. 6 days of ocean stretching endlessly in every direction. 6 days without sight of land. Ships cannot always dock when they arrive. The seas may be too rough, the wind too strong, the waves too unpredictable. Some visitors travel all the way to Tristan and never step foot on land. The ocean decides who is allowed to land. A volcano that defines everything. Tristan da Cunha is dominated by a volcano rising 2,000 meters above sea level. The slopes are green, covered in grasses and mosses. Clouds cling to the upper peaks. Streams wind down the mountainside. But the volcano is not dormant, it is active. In 1961, it erupted violently, forcing the entire population to evacuate to the United Kingdom. It was a moment of fear, uncertainty, and heartbreak. For the first time in centuries, the island was empty. 2 years later, when scientists declared the settlement area safe, the islanders made a choice few expected. They returned home. They chose their isolation over modern cities, their land over convenience, their community over comfort. Today, the volcano remains quiet, but its presence is constant. A reminder that life on Tristan da Cunha is shaped by nature, not by human plans. A life that moves at a different speed. Life on Tristan da Cunha is slow, and that is precisely the point. Here, people live differently. 1. Everyone knows everyone. There are fewer than 300 residents. Interactions are personal, not anonymous. 2. The economy is simple. Fishing, farming, and selling collectible stamps provide income. 3. Supplies are limited. Ship deliveries come a few times a year. If something runs out, you wait. 4. Technology exists. Selectively, there is internet, but slow and expensive. Phones work, but coverage is not perfect. 5. Community is essential. When someone builds a house, the community helps. When someone falls ill, neighbors support them. When a storm damages property, everyone repairs it together. This is a life without strangers. A life where isolation strengthens connection, not loneliness. A coastline guarded by waves. The waters around Tristan da Cunha are rich in marine life, but dangerous. Huge waves crash against jagged rocks. Storms sweep across the island with fierce winds. Fog obscures the horizon. Currents shift quickly. Fishing boats must be sturdy and their operators skilled. Even experienced sailors approach the sea with caution. These waters are some of the most unpredictable in the world, affecting supply schedules, emergency evacuations, fishing seasons, ship landings. The ocean both feeds the island and isolates it. The neighboring islands no one can reach. Tristan da Cunha is part of a small archipelago that includes Inaccessible Island, Nightingale Island, Go Island. Their names tell the story. Inaccessible Island, a fortress of cliffs and rough seas, impossible to land on without perfect conditions. Go Island, home only to a research station and millions of birds. Storms constantly batter its coastline. Nightingale Island, a volcanic island with steep slopes and fragile terrain. These islands add to Tristan's reputation as a place where nature holds complete authority. Why Tristan da Cunha is one of the most impossible places to reach. Its inaccessibility is not from harsh temperature or deadly wildlife. It comes from distance and isolation, pure and overwhelming. 1. No airport. The geography does not allow one. 2. Travel only by long ship voyage 6 to 7 days across open ocean. 3. Unpredictable seas ships cannot always land. 4. Limited transportation few boats, minimal infrastructure. 5. Rare supply deliveries essential items arrive only several times a year. 6. Extreme remoteness thousands of kilometers from any continent. 7. Dependence on weather storms delay travel, trade, and departures. 8. Closed immigration you cannot simply move to Tristan. The community controls population size. Tristan da Cunha is unreachable not because it is hostile, but because the world around it is infinite. A dot in the ocean that chooses who can find it. The beauty of life at the edge of the world for those who reach Tristan da Cunha. The reward is something rare, green cliffs glowing under soft sunlight, waves crashing rhythmically against volcanic rock, clouds rolling over the mountain peak, birds circling the sky, fields stretching quietly toward the sea. Life here feels peaceful because it is separated from everything else. No traffic, no noise, no crowds, no rush. Just the sound of the ocean and the heartbeat of a community that chose its isolation. Tristan da Cunha is one of the most impossible places to reach because it is one of the last places on Earth where distance still protects a way of life. Some places are unreachable because of distance, some because of weather, some because of nature. But North Sentinel Island is unreachable for another reason entirely. The people who live there want it that way. Hidden within the Andaman Sea, surrounded by turquoise water and dense forest, North Sentinel Island looks like a tropical paradise. Palm trees sway in the wind. White beaches stretch around the coastline. Birds glide over a pristine canopy untouched by modern development. But beneath the beauty lies a truth. The island is guarded by one of the most isolated tribes on Earth, the Sentinelese, a group that has resisted outside contact for thousands of years. Approach their shores and they will fire arrows. Send gifts and they will reject them. Attempt to land and you may not return. North Sentinel Island is one of the most impossible places to reach not because nature prevents you from entering, but because humanity does. A humanity that wants to remain alone. A tribe untouched by the modern world, the Sentinelese people are believed to have lived on the island for more than 50,000 years, making them one of the oldest isolated cultures on the planet. They hunt with bows and spears. They fish in shallow waters. They build shelters from wood and leaves. They live without electricity, machines, metals, or modern tools. Their language is unknown. Their customs are unknown. Their population size is unknown. Everything about their culture remains a mystery because they do not allow anyone to study them. Anthropologists, governments, explorers, all have tried. All have been driven away. This tribe has no treaties, no negotiations, no willingness to interact. Their intentions are simple: stay away, leave us alone, and the world has agreed. The island protected by law and passion after a series of violent encounters and a deepening respect for indigenous rights, the Indian government declared North Sentinel Island and its surrounding waters a restricted zone. No one may approach within 5 nautical miles of the island. Military patrols sweep the waters. Tourists are banned. Fishermen are warned repeatedly, do not come near. Violating this boundary is illegal and extremely dangerous. This legal barrier exists not only to protect outsiders but to protect the Sentinelese themselves. They have no immunity to modern diseases. A simple flu could devastate their entire tribe. In a strange twist of fate, their hostility is what has kept them alive. The hostility that defines contact. The Sentinelese rarely let outsiders leave safely. The 1896 incident, a convict escaped a nearby penal colony and drifted to the island. He was found dead days later, pierced with arrows. 2. The 1974 film crew, a National Geographic team approached by boat. The director was shot in the leg with an arrow. The crew fled immediately. 3. The 1981 cargo ship, the ship Primrose, ran aground near the island. Crew members watched as Sentinelese warriors prepared boats and weapons. They were rescued just in time. For the 2006 fishermen, 2 men drifted too close while sleeping on their boat. They were killed by the tribe. 5. The 2018 missionary incident, an American missionary attempted to contact the Sentinelese. They responded with arrows. His body was never recovered. These events are not random acts of violence. They are a clear message. The island is not open. The tribe is not interested. Stay away. A forest that hides ancient mysteries. North Sentinel Island is heavily forested. Dense jungle covers almost the entire landmass. Paths twist through trees and vines. Wildlife thrives without disturbance. Even satellite images reveal little. The canopy hides the tribe's dwellings and movements. There are no signs of agriculture, no visible villages, only brief glimpses of huts and temporary shelters along the forest edge. The interior remains uncharted, unmapped, and completely untouched. It is a rare example of a landscape still ruled entirely by indigenous hands, not by modern civilization. The ocean that acts as a natural wall. The waters around North Sentinel Island are difficult to navigate. Shallow reefs encircle the island, forming a jagged barrier that tears the bottoms of boats. Navigating them requires local knowledge, something no outsider has. These reefs act as a natural shield, making landings nearly impossible unless conditions are perfect. Even if someone manages to reach the beach, the tribe will already be watching. Sentinelese scouts patrol the shoreline. They appear silently from the forest, weapons in hand. They observe long before outsiders even realize they are being watched. Approaching North Sentinel Island is like stepping into someone else's guarded world, a world that does not want visitors. A culture that values isolation more than contact. To the Sentinelese, isolation is not a burden. It is their identity. Modern life, electricity, machines, clothing, medicine would destroy their culture instantly. Everything they know has been shaped by independence, by self-sufficiency, by living in harmony with their land. They do not want our help. They do not need our technology. They are not interested in our way of life. Their culture has remained untouched for thousands of years because they made a choice to stay separate. And respecting that choice is what keeps them alive. A place that challenges human curiosity, North Sentinel Island fascinates scientists, historians, and explorers. It raises endless questions. Who are the Sentinelese? Where did their ancestors come from? How do they survive? What do they believe? How large is their population? How does their society function? But these questions may remain unanswered forever. The island is one of the last places on Earth where humans have chosen not to share their world with outsiders. It forces us to confront an unusual reality. Not everything needs to be discovered. Not every culture wants to be understood. Not every land needs to be entered. Some mysteries are meant to remain mysteries. Why North Sentinel is one of the most impossible places to reach. Its inaccessibility comes from a rare combination of 1. Voluntary isolation. The tribe enforces absolute separation. 2. Legal protection. The Indian government prohibits all contact. 3. Dangerous waters. Reefs break boats and block landing points. 4. Hostile response. Any approach is met with arrows. 5. Lack of knowledge. No maps, no guides, no communication. 6. Health risks. A single modern disease could destroy the tribe. 7. Ethical boundaries. Contact would violate their right to remain isolated. North Sentinel Island is unreachable not because humans cannot go there, but because humans should not. It is one of the last untouched cultures on Earth, a living reminder that some people choose their own world and guard it fiercely. The beauty of a world chosen, not forced. The island's beaches are white, the water crystal blue, the forests thick and full of life. Birds circle above untouched land, yet no resorts stand there. No tourists walk the sand. No scientists build research stations. North Sentinel Island is pure because the people who inhabit it protect it with everything they have. It is not an island lost to time. It is an island protected by choice. And that makes it one of the most impossible places to reach on Earth, a land closed forever, a culture untouched, a mystery preserved. There are places that feel unusual, places that feel untouched. But Socotra Island, sitting in the Arabian Sea, feels like something else entirely. It feels unearthly. When people see photographs of Socotra for the first time, they often ask the same question: is this still Earth? The island is home to landscapes so bizarre, so twisted, and so ancient that they resemble scenes from another planet: towering umbrella-shaped trees, plants with swollen trunks like giant green bottles, limestone caves carved by time, and creatures found nowhere else on Earth. Socotra is remote, isolated, nearly impossible to reach. But its inaccessibility is not just about geography. It is about evolution. Millions of years of evolution, uninterrupted and untouched. Socotra invites the imagination, but reaching it is a very different story. An island lost in time, Socotra sits hundreds of kilometers off the coast of Yemen and Somalia. It is part of a small archipelago, but the main island, simply called Socotra, is the jewel. Separated from mainland Africa and Arabia millions of years ago, the island developed in isolation, creating life forms found nowhere else. 90% of its reptiles are unique. 37% of plant species exist only here. Countless insects evolved in shapes and colors unseen anywhere else. It is a living museum of ancient evolution. Scientists describe the island as a fragment of the prehistoric world, preserved in the middle of the sea. A place where time forgot to move forward. The dragon's blood trees, a forest of umbrellas. Socotra's most striking symbol is the dragon's blood tree. Tall, umbrella-shaped, with branches stretching upward like giant hands, these trees look like sculptures carved by an alien civilization. The tree bleeds a dark red resin when cut, a sap known since ancient times as dragon's blood, used for medicine, dye, and rituals. These trees survive on the island's dry plateaus by capturing mist from the air with their widespread branches. Walking among them feels like wandering through a forest designed by imagination rather than nature, shadows cast in strange shapes, wind whispering through hollow spaces. It is a forest that seems alive in a way that feels almost supernatural. Landscapes that do not belong to Earth. Socotra's scenery is diverse and surreal. One white sand dunes smooth, rolling hills of sand that look like deserts dropped in the middle of the sea. 2. Rugged limestone mountains, sharp peaks carved by wind, standing like ancient guardians. 3. Deep caves, some stretch for kilometers, filled with rare minerals and unusual rock formations. 4. Rocky plateaus, dry, cracked landscapes dotted with alien-looking plants. 5. Turquoise coastline, one of the most untouched marine ecosystems in the Indian Ocean. Socotra feels like a patchwork of different worlds: a desert from one planet, a forest from another, a coastline from a third, all combined into a single island that refuses to be ordinary. A journey that feels impossible. Reaching Socotra was never easy, and over the years, geopolitical instability made it even harder. The island belongs to Yemen, a nation that has faced conflict for decades. Due to this, flights are limited, travel permits are tightly controlled, tourism infrastructure is minimal, ship travel is inconsistent, safety concerns restrict access for long periods. Flights to Socotra were suspended entirely. Even when routes reopened, only a small number of visitors could come at a time. The combination of remoteness, conflict, and limited transport makes Socotra one of the hardest islands to access in the world. You cannot simply book a ticket and arrive. Even adventurers require careful planning, special permissions, and acceptance of risk. An island where culture and nature are one. Socotra is not just ecologically unique, it is culturally unique too. The Socotri people have lived here for thousands of years. They speak a language unrelated to Arabic, rooted in ancient tongues. Their traditions come from a mixture of African, Arabian, and local influences. Most villages are small. Houses are built from stone, clay, or palm leaves. Locals herd goats, fish in coastal waters, and gather resin from trees. Life here moves slowly, shaped by the land and sea. Families survive by understanding the island intimately. Where fresh water can be found, which plants can cure illness, when seasonal winds make fishing dangerous, how to navigate mountain paths, how to read clouds above the plateau. Their culture is tied to the island's uniqueness, preserved by the same isolation that protects its biodiversity. Creatures found nowhere else. Socotra is home to wildlife that evolved in isolation. 1. Unique reptiles, lizards in strange shapes and colors, adapted to dry, rocky terrain. 2. Birds that live only on the island. Several species exist nowhere else on Earth. 3. Marine richness, whales, dolphins, fish, coral reefs untouched by large-scale fishing. 4. Insects with unusual adaptations, some resemble prehistoric forms found only in fossils elsewhere. The island has no large predators, allowing many species to survive that would be outcompeted elsewhere. Every corner of Socotra seems to hold something ancient, something rare, something that makes you question what Earth is capable of creating. Isolation that preserves and endangers. Socotra's remoteness protects it from mass tourism, industrial development, pollution, invasive species, but it also makes the island vulnerable. A single new disease could damage delicate ecosystems. A single invasive plant could outcompete native ones. Increased tourism could threaten fragile habitats. Because the island evolved alone, it has no defenses against outsiders, biologically or culturally. This is why conservationists work tirelessly to preserve the island's purity. Socotra is not just remote, it is fragile. Its rarity depends on its isolation. A place that feels like fiction, yet is real. Walking through Socotra feels like stepping into a dream. The shadows of dragon's blood trees stretch across red soil. White sand dunes glow under a hot sun. Strange bottle trees with swollen trunks dot the horizon, their pink flowers blooming like stars. Fishermen glide across turquoise water in handmade boats. Goats climb rocks with impossible ease. Wind carries the scent of ancient resin across the plateau. It is a land of contrasts, harsh and gentle, dry and fertile, strange and beautiful. A world that looks imagined but exists quietly in the Indian Ocean. Why Socotra is one of the most impossible places to reach. Its inaccessibility comes from several powerful factors. 1. Geographic isolation, hundreds of kilometers from major landmasses. 2. Political instability, travel restrictions due to regional conflict. 3. Limited transportation, few flights, irregular schedules, minimal infrastructure. 4. Harsh terrain, mountains and rocky plateaus restrict movement. 5. Ecological sensitivity, strict conservation guidelines limit exploration. 6. Fragile ecosystems, outside influence must be controlled. 7. Cultural preservation, traditional ways of life limit large-scale development. Socotra is unreachable not because it rejects humans, but because it evolved without them, and it must be protected from the modern world. The beauty of Earth's strangest island, Socotra, is more than an island. It is a living reminder of what Earth looked like millions of years ago, a place untouched, unspoiled, and almost unbelievable. Its isolation created life that exists nowhere else. Its rugged terrain protects secrets from ages past. Its people live in harmony with nature in ways modern society has forgotten. Socotra is one of the most impossible places to reach, not because it hides, but because it survived. A fragment of ancient Earth floating peacefully in the Arabian Sea. Most people imagine Antarctica as a vast sheet of ice, endless white plains, snow-blown mountains, and glaciers stretching to the horizon. But hidden deep within this frozen continent is a place that defies the imagination. A place with no ice, no snow, no vegetation, and almost no life. A place so dry and so hostile that scientists use it to study Mars. These are the McMurdo Dry Valleys, one of the most extreme environments on Earth and one of the most inaccessible. This is a region where the cold is constant, the wind is fierce, the silence is absolute, and the landscape looks like a world untouched by anything living. It is a desert inside a continent of ice, a contradiction that should not exist, and yet it does. And accessing it is nearly impossible. A land where ice refuses to form. The McMurdo Dry Valleys stretch across several massive valleys in Antarctica, near the coast of the Ross Sea. But unlike the rest of the continent, these valleys are almost completely free of ice. How can that be? The answer is in the katabatic winds, extremely dry, supercooled air that rushes down from the Antarctic plateau at hurricane speeds. These winds can reach over 200 kilometers per hour, 124 mph. They evaporate moisture instantly. They sweep away snow before it can accumulate. They prevent ice from settling on the valley floor. As a result, the ground is bare. Rocks have not moved in thousands of years. Rivers exist only during rare summer melts. Lakes remain permanently sealed under thick ice. The air is so dry it cracks skin instantly. This is one of the driest places on Earth, drier even than the Atacama in some regions. A place where water, life, and time all struggle to exist. A desert hidden in a frozen continent. At first glance, the dry valleys look alien. The landscape is dominated by jagged mountains, exposed ancient rock, frozen lakes with clear blue ice, cyclone-carved cliffs, boulder fields, untouched for millennia, brown, dust-filled ground, skies that seem too large for the earth beneath. It is a world shaped not by life, but by wind, cold, and geological time. The valleys have not seen rainfall for nearly 2 million years. Nothing grows, nothing decays, nothing seems to change. This is Earth at its most silent. The lakes of impossible ice. Although the dry valleys are mostly free of snow, they contain several frozen lakes, but not like any lakes you know. These lakes, never thaw completely, are sealed under several meters of ice, contain liquid water trapped beneath solid surfaces, hold unique microorganisms adapted to extreme cold. The most famous of these is Lake Vonda, with water supersaturated with salts and minerals. Its temperatures rise dramatically at the bottom, even reaching warm levels due to geothermal heat. Other lakes contain strange, layered ice, each line representing years of sediment in a place with no seasons. Walking on these lakes is like stepping onto frozen time. A place with no sound and no smell. In the dry valleys, silence is overwhelming. There are no birds, no insects, no plants, no flowing water, no rustling wind through leaves. The air carries no scent because nothing decomposes here. There are no soils rich with life, no vegetation, no moisture. It is a silence beyond silence, an absence of sound so complete it feels like pressure on the ears. Explorers describe hearing only their own breathing, their footsteps crunching in gravel, and the distant whistle of katabatic winds. It is a place where the world feels paused, a place where time does nothing. The valleys that hid an ancient mystery. One of the most striking features of the dry valleys is Blood Falls, a rusty red outflow at the end of Taylor Glacier. No, it is not actually blood, but the iron-rich water has oxidized after emerging into oxygen-rich air, staining the ice crimson. The water is millions of years old, trapped beneath the glacier in a dark, salty environment. Scientists discovered something astonishing. The water contains living microbes, organisms that have survived without sunlight, without warmth, without oxygen. Their existence suggests that life could exist in similar conditions elsewhere in the solar system. This is one reason the dry valleys are used as a model for Mars exploration. They represent the closest environment on Earth to the Martian surface: dry, cold, barren, silent. The challenge of reaching the dry valleys. Even though the dry valleys are part of Antarctica, reaching them is a challenge within a challenge. 1. First, you must reach Antarctica. Only a few countries have research bases. Flights are limited and often delayed by extreme weather. 2. Then, you must travel across sea ice or fly via helicopter. The dry valleys are far from most bases. 3. Weather controls everything. A storm can interrupt travel for days or weeks. 4. Only scientists and authorized personnel can enter. Tourism is heavily restricted to preserve the environment. 5. The terrain itself is unforgiving. Sharp rocks, extreme temperature shifts, and glare from the sun make navigation dangerous. Even researchers who work there describe it as one of the most inhospitable places they have ever encountered. The dry valleys are not meant for casual exploration. They are meant for study and survival. The scientific value of a dead land. It may seem ironic. A place with almost no life teaches us the most about life. Scientists come here to study microbial resilience, climate history, geological processes, the possibilities of life on Mars, ancient ecosystems. Soil samples here are some of the oldest undisturbed soils on the planet. Rock formations preserve histories millions of years old. Frozen lakes hold clues to environments never seen elsewhere. Every discovery in the dry valleys adds another piece to the story of Earth and potentially to the story of life beyond it. A place where humans do not belong. Despite our curiosity, the dry valleys do not welcome us. The environment drains energy rapidly. The cold burns skin instantly. The dryness cracks lips and eyes. Wind sculpts the land into harsh, jagged forms. Even brief exposure can be dangerous. And yet, standing there, surrounded by silence, barren rock, frozen water, one feels a sense of awe, a sense of witnessing Earth before life, or perhaps Earth long after life. The dry valleys show us a version of our planet without us, a version untouched, unaltered, and perfect in its emptiness. Why the MCMURDO dry valleys are one of the most impossible places on Earth. Their inaccessibility comes from unique combinations of factors. 1. Extreme dryness, some of the driest air on the planet. 2. Constant katabatic winds, powerful winds that remove moisture and snow. 3. Harsh cold temperatures that swing wildly and consistently remain below freezing. 4. Geographic isolation, deep inside Antarctica, far from major bases. 5. Difficult travel routes, helicopters needed. Weather often prevents access. 6. Fragile ecosystems, strict scientific guidelines prevent uncontrolled visitation. 7. Lack of life, no natural resources for survival. Together, these elements make the dry valleys a place beyond the reach of most humans, a place that resists habitation, a place that reveals the raw face of Earth, the beauty of a world without life. And yet, the dry valleys are breathtaking, the colors of rock under sharp light, the smooth, frozen surfaces of lakes, the red streak of blood falls, the towering peaks surrounding each valley, the air so clear you can see miles in every direction. It is a harsh beauty, one that demands respect, a beauty born not from life but from the absence of it. The McMurdo Dry Valleys remain one of the most impossible places to reach because they are one of the few places where Earth refuses to support life, and yet still holds profound meaning. A landscape untouched. A desert frozen in time. Most remote islands have people, most unreachable deserts have land, most forbidden forests at least hold life. But Point Nemo has nothing. No humans, no wildlife, no plants, no ships, no islands, nothing but endless, rolling ocean stretching in every direction for thousands of kilometers. Point Nemo is not a piece of land. It is a position, a coordinate in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean. A location so far from civilization that the nearest humans are often the astronauts orbiting above in the International Space Station. This is the most remote point on the entire planet. the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, where the world feels empty, silent, and forgotten. The closest land is more than 2,600 kilometers, 1,450 nautical miles, away in all directions. Not just inhabited land, any land. Point Nemo is the farthest you can possibly be from anyone, anywhere on Earth. And because of that, it has become one of the most impossible, unsettling, and strangely beautiful places in the world. A place defined not by what is there, but by what isn't. An ocean desert with no life standing at Point Nemo, if you could, would feel like floating in the middle of infinity. The sea here is eerily calm. Waves rise and fall without sound. The horizon is a perfect circle. And beneath the surface, life is shockingly sparse. Oceanographers have found that Point Nemo sits within the South Pacific Gyre, a massive rotating current system where nutrient-rich waters rarely reach. This makes the region one of the least biologically active areas on Earth. Few fish, almost no plankton, no coral, no seabirds circling overhead. It is, in the truest sense, an ocean desert. The silence is not just emotional, it is ecological. A place where Earth feels empty. Imagine drifting here. No land breaking the horizon, no ships passing by, no radio signals, no signs of human activity, no birds guiding migration routes, just wind, waves, and sky. Even satellites often show nothing but a blank blue circle where Point Nemo lies. It is a place where the world feels paused, a place where Earth seems to exhale and rest. Some sailors say you can feel the isolation in your bones, as if the planet has turned its back on this corner of its surface. Others say it feels like drifting through outer space, except the stars are hidden and the universe has turned blue. The spaceship graveyard Point Nemo holds a strange and eerie connection to space. Because it is so far from civilization, space agencies around the world use it as a controlled crash zone for decommissioned satellites and spacecraft. Dozens of objects have been deliberately dropped into the ocean here, including cargo ships from the International Space Station, Russian supply rockets, space laboratories, scientific satellites, China's Tiangong-1 space station. This makes Point Nemo the largest spacecraft cemetery on Earth. While the ocean above appears empty, the ocean floor beneath is littered with pieces of fallen machines, fragments of human technology resting in eternal silence. It is a reminder of how isolated this place truly is. The safest place to crash a space station is a spot where nobody has ever been. A point you cannot stand on. Unlike islands, mountains, or glaciers, Point Nemo is not a physical object. You cannot step onto it. You cannot climb it. You cannot explore it on foot. It is a coordinate, a mathematically calculated location where the ocean reaches its farthest possible distance from land. To reach it, you must travel by ship for more than a week across some of the roughest waters on Earth. And even if you arrive, there is nothing to see. The ocean looks the same in every direction. The water beneath is unimaginably deep. The nearest land is so far away you will never glimpse it. And that is precisely what makes Point Nemo impossible. It is unreachable not because it is guarded, not because it is dangerous, but because it is nothingness, a void in the middle of the planet. The closest presence above you may be astronauts. The closest presence below you may be ancient wreckage. But around you, there is only emptiness. Waters shaped by isolation. The ocean around Point Nemo is known for patterns that reveal just how cut off it is. 1. Few waves of biological origin. Because there is so little life here, the water carries almost no organic material. 2. No shipping routes. Commercial and military vessels have no reason to pass through. It is not on the way to anywhere. 3. No fishing zones. There simply isn't enough marine life to justify it. 4. Minimal pollution. Ironically, isolation protects the region from many environmental dangers, other than space debris sinking from above. 5. Extreme depths. The ocean floor lies thousands of meters below, cold and silent. Point Nemo is so empty that it challenges our understanding of Earth's oceans. If the planet has a place where it feels hollow, this is it. The myths and stories surrounding Point Nemo, because of its eerie isolation. Point Nemo has inspired many myths. Claims of strange sounds recorded underwater speculation about hidden creatures, comparisons to the Arla city from H.P. Lovecraft's stories. The idea that alien life may have visited here, tales of ships vanishing into silence. While most of these stories are fictional, the emotional truth behind them is clear. Point Nemo feels like a place where anything could be hiding, because no one is there to see it. Isolation fuels imagination. Why Point Nemo is one of the most impossible places on Earth. Its inaccessibility comes from the pure mathematics of distance. One farthest point from any land more than 2,600 kilometers from all coastlines. Two, no reason to travel there, no resources, no infrastructure, no commerce. Three, dangerous ocean conditions, powerful currents, storms, and unpredictable waves. Four, no nearby rescue, emergency response is nearly impossible. 5. Absolute emptiness, no landmarks, no direction, no visual references. 6. Not a physical destination, it is a point in an endless ocean. You cannot arrive in the traditional sense. Point Nemo is unreachable not because it pushes you away, but because it offers nothing to hold on to. It is isolation in its purest form. Across all 25 places, one truth becomes clear. Even in the age of satellites, global travel, and instant communication, the Earth still has corners we cannot reach, places we cannot tame, and mysteries we cannot solve. Some places reject us with violence, some with storms, some with cold, some with silence, some with endless distance. And some, like Point Nemo, reject us by simply being unreachable in concept, a reminder that the world remains larger, stranger, and more powerful than we often believe. Each of the 25 locations holds its own reason for being impossible. Landscapes, too harsh; distances, too great; cultures, too sacred; nature, too unpredictable; geography, too extreme; isolation, too complete. These places teach us humility. They remind us that Earth is not fully ours, that exploration has limits, that the natural world still commands awe, that some corners of the planet prefer to remain untouched. In a century where everything feels mapped and known, there are still places that defy our reach, places that protect their secrets, places that whisper ancient stories, places that refuse to be conquered. And maybe that is what makes them beautiful. The world is vast. The unknown still exists. And as long as it does, we will always have something left to wonder about.